Tonight on the all-night drive-in picture show.
Capital F, E, little L, L-A-T-I-O. Thanks. Don't mention it.
Ben.
Hello, Grace. Hello, Gorilla. Dudley. You're gonna love what we got so far.
Let me guess. Everyone saw Santa Claus.
And now, here are your projectionists. Now they know how to pronounce genre. Ryan Mason and Charles Wood.
Welcome to the all-night drive-in picture show. I'm Ryan. That's Charles.
Hi, guys.
Will you start the damn show?
Yeah, buddy! Attention patrons. The movies discussed on this podcast will be spoiled from start to finish. If you wish to experience these cinematic gems visually, please do so before continuing with this episode. We will be right here when you return. Thank you and have a pleasant evening.
And now, please enjoy our featured presentation.
For tonight's first feature, you wanted Billy to come home for Christmas. Surprise, he's in the attic. This is Black Christmas.
Remember those idyllic scenes out of your childhood? Crisp winter nights, star bright, sleigh bells, crackling Yule logs, candlelight glistening off of shimmering Christmas trees, chestnuts roasting over open fires, carolers beneath snow-covered window ledges. Remember those. Remember them well. After Black Christmas, they'll never be the same again.
A high school girl's been murdered. Mr. Harrison's daughter is missing. And now at the house where she lives, the other girls are getting obscene phone calls.
Yeah, what I've done is I've tapped this phone so that when it rings, it'll ring at the station house, too.
There was a little girl murdered over in the park tonight.
Yes, I heard.
Your phone's ringing.
Hello?
Hey, Mommy. There's a baby. Baby, all right, Mommy. Just a minute.
Who's there?
I know you're there. Just a minute. You have to be a spirit. Mommy. Come here. Where's Ethan? You won't.
Why are you doing this?
Black Christmas, starring Olivia Hussey, Keir Dullea, Margot Kidder, and starring John Saxon as Lieutenant Fuller. If this movie doesn't make your skin crawl, it's on too tight.
The film opens on a shot of a sorority house decorated for Christmas. Lights, wreaths, the whole bit. There's even a choir singing Silent Night as the score. We see Jess, played by Olivia Hussey, walk by on the sidewalk, and then we are close to the house. We watch her as she goes inside. Through the window, we can see signs of activity. Then we're looking through the POV of a panting madman. He approaches the front door and looks in the windows before looking up at the house's upper floors.
I like how Bob Clark, the director, mixes POVs in the scene. First, we're across the street from the house, right? And we're looking at it, just taking it in an establishing shot, which is a bookend. Then we have the objective view of the space right in front of the house as we watch Jess go inside. And then we have the killer's POV, and he comes in and he stands pretty much right where we were in the objective camera angle, and we're in his POV looking around and then he looks up at the upper floors. But then we step out behind him when he's looking in the windows at the women. So his silhouette just kind of creeps across the screen.
Yeah.
And we see kind of the contour of the side of his face, like his eye socket and his cheekbone or whatever. I really like that mix of POVs. And I honestly think that in the hands of a lesser filmmaker, it probably would have felt really jumbled. But this didn't to me. Like, it just felt very, very smooth. And it actually surprised me.
Yeah.
This was the first time that the POV was used in a slasher movie, right? Is that the case?
I think so. I can't really remember one before it that did that.
Yeah. So I think this is probably one of the first ones, if not the first one to do that. I mean,
yeah.
I think if you go on the internet and look around, there are some people that say, yeah, Black Christmas was the first one. And then there's like some eyeglass pusher who says, well, actually, you know.
Right.
So somebody's out there saying, well, actually right now, and God love you, you know, just hit Ryan up on social media.
No, just take solace in the fact that you're right. So
you are definitely right.
Yeah.
And you're very handsome too.
You are.
People love you.
That's right. Inside, Barb, played by the late and highly underrated Margot Kidder, descends the stairs and closes the inner front door, cussing at whoever left it open. Then we're back outside with the, let's be honest, killer's point of view as he finds some lattice work and begins climbing. Back inside, Barb is shooting the shit with Phil, played by Andrea Martin, and her boyfriend Patrick, played by Michael Rapport.
Oh, by the way, how come I was the only one there working tonight?
We were there this afternoon, Barb.
A likely story.
How's it look?
Yulish, very Yulish. Have you got your Santa Claus suit ready?
Yeah. What time do little bastards arrive?
At 1 o'clock.
The phone rings and it's Barb's mother, so she leaves the room to take the call elsewhere. Meanwhile, the killer has found his way into the attic through a window. It's dusty, cobwebby, and full of furniture and odd junk.
What was with the carousel horse?
Yeah.
Why is there a meat hook with a pulley up there? I'm really confused. Did Billy bring this shit? He obviously didn't bring this shit. We saw him climb. I'm just really confused. Really confused.
Very odd.
Plus, there are 2 dead bodies. Well, not yet, but there will be 2 dead bodies.
Well, let's not forget the bird cages, too.
The bird cages.
Yeah.
They don't have any birds. Maybe because that damn Claude has eaten them all.
Oh, yeah. Claude's definitely up to no good.
I hate Claude.
Yeah. Downstairs, Barb is on the main phone in the entryway. We're looking down at her from upstairs. The camera pans away from Barb and along the upstairs wall to the attic hatch in the ceiling, and then we're seeing it through the killer's eyes from inside as he opens it and comes down into the house. Then we're down with Barb for a moment as she talks with her mom about how much she's had to drink. Now we see Barb through the killer's eyes as he stands at the top of the stairs and we hear Barb talking. Apparently her mother has a new man and she's going on vacation without Barb for Christmas. Back downstairs, we follow Chris, played by Art Hindle, and Claire, played by Lynn Griffin, as she walks him to the door. Chris is wearing a huge fur coat that makes him look like the biggest pimp in Alaska. They kiss each other as we hear Barb calling her mother a gold-plated whore.
Oh, so perfect.
In the background.
So perfect.
And her delivery's awesome. You are just a gold-plated whore.
You know that? I think that's what you're just a gold-plated whore, mother. You know that?
It was awesome. Then Chris and Claire make plans to meet up the next week before he exits.
It's funny that Chris and Claire are saying their goodbyes at the door, and that line comes up, and the way that they mixed it, it's not really mixed into the background. It's pretty much right there in your face. It's so funny. They kiss each other. You're a real gold-plated whore. You know that, Mom?
Barb hangs up and goes back into the living room, asking if anyone wants to go skiing for a few days with her. Jess and Phil agree with pitying looks. Claire begs off, saying she's made other plans. Barb groans.
I really love that Clark is establishing spatial relationships early here.
Right.
I like that since we're going to spend so much time in this house in the movie, I like that he's laying this solid logistical groundwork for the action that will come up later on. That's why this opening is so painstakingly detailed, because
you kind of have to.
You kind of have to, because you kind of have to orally create this picture for people who maybe haven't seen the movie. Although, if you're listening to this, you've probably seen the movie, honestly.
And if you haven't, get on it.
Yeah, it's readily available. He really does do a lot of hard work here in the early goings, and he makes it so engaging. I mean, the way I was talking about, he mixes the POVs. the way he weaves in character stuff like Barb's phone call and her relationship with her mother and her friction with the goody-good Claire,
Yeah.
I think this opening is great.
It really is.
Very subtle. It's not as
economical too, man. It's setting everybody up very quickly.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's not as whiz bang as Dawn of the Dead was.
Yeah.
But I think the filmmaking is kind of the spectacle in the early going here.
Right.
So Clark was such an incredible filmmaker.
He really was. The phone rings again and Jess answers, which she'll do a lot in this movie. It's the crank caller that's been bothering them again, or so they think. Jess calls out to the other women and they gather around to listen to the creep.
He's expanded his act. Could that be one person? No, Claire, that's the Mormon Tabernacle Choir doing their annual obscene phone call.
He starts off with the standard moaning and grunting, but then the call takes a bizarre turn when he starts doing multiple voices and pig snorts and talking in a filthy fashion about sexual acts of the oral variety. Barb grabs the phone and tells him to call Lambda Chi and stick his tongue in a wall socket. He keeps on with the lewd material for a beat or two and then stops and says matter-of-factly,
I'm going to kill you.
God, that's so chilling.
It is, man. It's just like... If you haven't seen the movie, he's grunting and snorting, and he's
and that's horrifying on its own.
And he's saying awful things, like stuff that we are not going to say on this podcast.
Right. Stuff that I'm surprised that they said in 1974.
Yeah.
On
and
film.
Repeatedly.
He
says it at least 10 times, and every time it just gets more grating. It's just like it really bothers you.
Yeah.
And then he says, I'm going to kill you.
Like
and
it's it wasn't even like he wasn't like, I'm going to kill. It's just like, I'm going to kill you. Like it's a fact.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
It reminded me of the phone calls in Zodiac, like that.
Yeah.
Just matter-of-factly, I killed these kids. They're up here. Goodbye. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not the Zodiac. I'm just imitating. I'm not the Zodiac killer. So
no, it's Ted Cruz.
Yeah, it's Ted Cruz or his dad or nobody. We don't know who the Zodiac killer is.
We don't. It's Ted Cruz. I totally want it to be Ted Cruz.
He is not old
Senator
enough.
Ted Cruz is the Zodiac killer, ladies and gentlemen.
Check Wikipedia. We're now going to get sued because you did not check Wikipedia and check his birthday.
Okay, I'll say allegedly. How about that? He's allegedly the Zodiac killer.
Oh, man. That's awesome. Wow. Oh, man. But, yeah, man, that's, oof. To me, that's as chilling as all the snorting and grunting and stuff that he does.
Yeah.
I mean, oof.
It really is.
It's heavy, man.
The ladies are concerned about the phone call, but Barb isn't. Claire says she shouldn't provoke a guy like that, especially since a girl from town was recently raped. Barb says you can't rape a townie. An offended Claire exits and goes to pack her suitcase. Okay, so Barb's character is one of those hard characters that's not always easy to be around,
Yeah.
Everyone knows a Barb, someone mostly fun, but can be really cold and callous. It could be because the person didn't have the best upbringing or they have some lingering issues in their life, but Barb shows that she really didn't have time for a sweet, timid person like Claire.
Well, see, I think that's a two-way street, though.
Yeah.
I mean, just because there is a little bit of self-satisfied spite in Claire's face when she turns down Barb's ski invitation. But I know what you're saying because I agree. Like, I wouldn't want to hang out with Barb. And I think in some situations, I probably am Barb, honestly. So I definitely don't like hanging out with me. But
I can vouch for that. Sorry.
Happy Thanksgiving. But I do think this hanging out with somebody like Claire would have its own challenges because people who are really tightly wound to me are almost as annoying as people who are loud and need to be the center of attention all the time. One thing about Claire, though, is she brings up the idea of it being multiple people. In real life, that was true. It was multiple people. It was like 3 different people making these voices for the phone call. So you had Bob Clark, the director, then the actor Nick Mancuso, and the actor Anne Sweeney. And supposedly, like in interviews with Mancuso, he talks about how he actually stood on his head to do all of his voiceover for Billy.
Oh, wow.
So that he could compress. I think he said something about compressing his vocal cords. And I want to say he said thorax. He said some sort of body part with an axe at the end of it. I don't know necessarily which one that is because I failed out of medical school.
Sure.
So the other thing is, I think Barb is spooked by the phone call. I think she is. I think
She's
right
been on airs, but I think she is too.
I think right at the end, because the look on her face at the end when he said, "I'm going to kill you," that was fear.
Yeah.
To me.
Well, you can tell she's a type that always fancies herself to be the toughest one in the room too,
Yeah.
Or at least given that appearance. So.
Right. I would really have liked to have seen, and I don't want to get too far ahead, but I mean, people have seen this movie, right? I mean, I hope so.
If not, you better. I've already told you that once. Don't make me tell you again.
Oh, man, you better watch out. Oh, wait, that's later. I really would have loved to have seen a sober Barb take on Billy.
Yeah.
Jess is pretty much the focal point of this movie.
Sure.
And I think what we get with Jess is we get a blend of Barb and Claire. Barb and Claire are the two extremes. I feel like Jess is right down the middle.
Right.
She's quiet and she's thoughtful and probably a bit judgmental, but at the same time, she's very strong-willed.
Yeah.
And I can foresee that we're probably going to have an argument about a decision she makes at the end of the movie. But I really think that she kind of has some of Barb's bravado, but I think in Jess's case, it's real. I think her bravery is real.
Yeah. Enter the house mother, Mrs. Mack, played brilliantly by the late Marion Waldman, carrying 2 armloads of presents with a dangling cigarette in her mouth. She's banging on the front door, which has an issue with sticking. She complains about how busy the stores were as the girls help her with the presents. Meanwhile, as Claire is packing, the madman is in her closet peering at her through a plastic dry cleaning bag. She hears a noise and thinks it's Claude, the sorority's cat, which she found in her room when she entered. Claire goes to inspect the closet when the creep grabs her and suffocates her with the bag. We see his shadow as he carries Claire up to the attic while the other sisters are preoccupied watching Mac open presents.
Now, I'm trying to remember. Have you seen a slasher movie where the killer moves the body? I was trying to think about that. I think maybe in one of the Halloween movies we might have seen Michael Myers moving a body around.
Maybe, yeah.
But usually they just end up in weird places to pop out for jump scares.
Right.
And I like in this movie that it's kind of like Claire's going to be used for a scare later on, but it's not really a jump scare because it's not like she's dropping out of a closet where it's impossible to hang her up.
Yeah.
Or it's not like we're hanging her in the middle of a gymnasium when she's 3 times our body weight.
One problem I have with the most recent Halloween movie is there's a character in the movie who gets killed outside and ends up on the top floor of this house in the top of a closet.
Yeah, I don't get that.
It's like, wouldn't we see or hear this happening?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Michael Myers is a big, strong dude, of course.
Yeah.
But it's going to take a lot to pick up something that weighs, 150, 160 pounds and shove it in the top of a closet.
Right.
After carrying it upstairs.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man.
I mean,
I'm willing to suspend disbelief for anything as long as it's something enjoyable and good. But come on.
Well, and in that movie, too, wasn't that one of the only instances of that?
Yeah.
So it made it stick out even more, I thought.
Yeah.
I agree with you on the sound, especially in that movie, because for me, like, I tear out one shelf of this projection booth and Jackie's all over my ass about it. I get sick and tired of that. But Michael Myers can move a body from outside a cabin to the top floor and nobody says shit.
Right.
I don't get it.
Right.
I'm writing my resignation letter as we speak.
The girls all leave the room together, and Mac goes for a bottle of hooch she has hidden in a hollowed-out book. I love it. I love when anything's hollowed out in a book like that. Whether it be Andy Dufresne hiding the hammer or, Mrs. Mac hiding a bottle of hooch. I love it. I think it's such a cool idea. She's a functioning alcoholic with some drinky drink hidden in every room of the house. Jess comes back into the room just as Mac is replacing her hooch book on the shelf. Phil joins them as the phone rings. Phil answers. This time it's Jess's boyfriend, played by Keir Dullea. He apologizes for not being around as he's been practicing his classical piano for his tryout to get into music school for 4 days. He's a tad obsessed with his performance. Jess has something important that she needs to talk to him about, but he tries to blow her off. She pushes the issue, and he agrees to talk to her the next day in the music room. This dude is so intense in this movie. DeLay, man, he's a raw nerve, and he strikingly looks like Joel McHale.
He's also 38 years old here.
He 38-year-old.
Seriously, he was 38.
Oh, I know,
when
yeah.
he made this. And that's proof positive. We could get Kurt Russell in 23 Jump Street or whatever.
Yeah. Kurt Russell is a college student.
Yeah. One more time.
The funny thing is, and I mean, he was cast very well, but he looks 38 in this movie too.
He does. Yeah, I could buy that he's maybe slightly younger.
Yeah.
But I'm still thinking a 35-year-old graduate student or 34-year-old graduate student. I'm not thinking that he's 23 or whatever.
I'd buy him more as a young professor than I would as a student.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He is excellent in this movie, and he's one of those people because of his demeanor. He's very well suited to be the setup as a suspect for the killer.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's a very nice guy, but he's got a very specific face.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was because the first time I really saw him was in 2001, which was a creepy movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also saw him in the Marquis de Sade movie. He's a very creepy looking guy, and I think that they really use the specificity of his face to really strong effect later on in this movie to really make you suspect that this could be the guy. This could be Billy.
Mac is brushing her teeth and singing at the same time. She pulls a bottle attached to a string out of the toilet tank. The label is askew from the tank water. She rinses her mouth with the brown liquor, spits, and takes another swig. The girls... Sorry. I'm just picturing the scene in my head. It always cracks me up. The girls bought her a green flowered nightgown. She looks at it and says,
Jesus, I wouldn't wear this to have my liver.
She is my absolute favorite character in this movie. She's primarily the comic relief, but she's so good in this role that you wonder if it's really her personality.
I guess that this was based on Bob Clark's aunt.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I think, I don't know that she was as much of an alcoholic as Mac is in this movie, but I guess she did have a few things hidden around. She's wonderful in this role.
Yeah.
She's just so great.
Oh, man. It cracks me up just thinking about that scene. She's just so funny.
I like the little monologue she goes into later on when Mr. Harrison shows up.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that, but it's so great.
Jess knocks on Claire's door, but there's no answer. Smash cut to Claire's corpse, eyes open, mouth agape, still wrapped in plastic and sitting in a rocking chair as the creep sings Little Baby Bunting in a ragged falsetto.
Little baby bunting, daddy's gone a-hunting, gone to fetch a rabbit skin to wrap his baby Agnes in.
Cross dissolved to the next day at the campus clock tower. Claire's father, Mr. Harrison, played by James Edmond, waits in front of the clock as it slowly, creepily chimes out O Little Town of Bethlehem. He's waiting for Claire, and we know she ain't coming. As he paces, he takes a snowball to the face from some asshole kid, and his glasses are knocked to the pavement. A male student helps him with the glasses and gives him directions to Claire's house. Meanwhile, at the Christmas event, Barb and Patrick argue over Phil.
Ho, 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 shit.
Santa, please.
Look, she's supposed to be going away with me for the weekend, goddammit.
Well, we decided that we would go skiing for a few days, didn't we?
Yeah, and I've been looking forward to this for 3 weeks. Bitch.
Isn't Santa naughty?
Ho, 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 fuck.
So, real quick, what was she handing out to those kids?
I don't remember.
I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
I kept running the movie back, and it looked like little fruit pies, but she was just throwing them to them.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell if they were playing, like, table cornhole or maybe it's some Canadian thing. But
what she gives to one of these kids here in a minute cracks me up, too.
Yeah, it was probably just packets of cocaine.
Probably, yeah. Now Mr. Harrison is at the sorority house, and Mac is showing him around. She tells him she believes that Claire is working a charity event for underprivileged children on campus as he looks around the house disapprovingly. He sees a poster of an old lady giving the finger and a picture of Chris, and he's disappointed. He didn't send her to college to drink and pick up boys. He offers to take Mac to the charity event. Mac puts on makeup and a hat, bitching about Harrison and his stuffiness, intermittently taking pulls from a bottle.
I didn't send my daughter here to be drinking and picking up boys. Oh, shit. You're supposed to be responsible for the morals of every girl in this goddamn house. These broads would hunt the leaning tower of Pisa if they could get up there. I do my best. I don't know what the bastards expect of me. Christ's sake. Claude? Is that you, Claudykins? Claude? Here, kitty, 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 kitty. Come on, Claude. Come say goodbye to Mommy. Is that you, Claude? Oh, Jesus, Claude. Look what you made me do. Come on, Claude. Here, kitty, 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 kitty. Come on, Claude. I gotta go. Here, kitty. Oh, God damn it, Claude, you little prick.
She loudly curses at the cat as Harrison comes up the stairs and gives her a snooty look.
This is very kind of you, Mr. Harrison.
Think nothing of it.
As he's walking away, she gives him 2 Bronx howdies. I love the shot of Mac and Harrison walking to the car, and then the camera quickly pulls back, and we see that we've been watching them through the attic window, and Claire's body is right by the window.
Yeah.
She's there the entire movie, and no one even notices her, which is, apropos for her character since she has a hard time fitting in.
Yeah, that's a slick camera move.
It is.
It's a nice, subtle little thing. And I think you're right. I mean, I think that she's so unassuming, and it's interesting that somebody who's unassuming like that, they are really kind of lax about her disappearance for a long time.
Yeah.
She's just kind of gone. I love Mac here too because honestly now, those are the types of bitch sessions I have every single day.
Every day.
If something is bothering me or if I think I've handled a situation poorly, which, hey, let's be honest, is often. I will go back and forth just like Mac does, talking to herself in this little sequence. I will talk to myself in the mirror. Yeah. I will talk to my cat in very mean ways, although he just kind of looks at me and meows and walks away. He doesn't really care.
He didn't give a shit.
Yeah. But I really responded to Mac here.
Yeah.
I was just kind of like, if I were one of those people who called people their spirit animal, then I would designate Mac. But I don't do that.
And I'm glad you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I too have those little conversations with myself at my day job. If I'm in the back room, which there is a camera in the back room, you can often see me just kind of pacing about, talking to myself, and I probably look like a nut bar. But sometimes you just got to get it out.
Got to get it off your head. You got to unload it from the truck.
Yeah,
got plenty of other shit to load on there.
No kidding. Jess breaks the news to Peter that she's pregnant. Peter is thrilled at the news, but Jess isn't. She wants an abortion, much to his dismay. He says she can't do that without him agreeing to it, but it's her decision to make, and she's made it. This is the day of his performance, and he says that she never thinks of anyone but herself. He tells her to pound sand, but then stops her on the way out and asks to talk to her later on that night. She reluctantly agrees.
I like that she's firm here.
Yeah.
I like the role reversal because usually it's kind of like the guy saying, oh, no, we can't have this child. And the woman's saying, yeah, I want to have this baby.
Right.
And in this, I like that she's just kind of like, nope, this is what I'm going to do. I didn't want to tell you about it. I don't really have to tell you. Although I think his whole thing about having the baby, later on, he tries to morph that into more of a control issue because you realize that his life is spinning out of control.
Yeah.
And he's trying to take control of anything he can, which is her in the end. So,
yeah. Wrong thing to try to seize control of, too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and the thing, too, is that in trying to do that, we'll see that he's lying to her. He'll lie to her later on. And he's lying. And the great thing about this movie is that she knows he's lying. She never falls for that. She's too smart for it.
Right. One thing this movie is not short of is strong female characters, too, which is great. I mean, this being a movie from 1974,
right?
Things were still backward, at that time.
Right.
This is a whole movie full of really strong female characters, especially Jess.
Yeah.
And, of course, Barb, she's strong-willed, too, and so is Phil.
Yeah.
Andrea Martin. So, yeah, great movie, great characters.
Yeah. Phil, I think, originally was supposed to be played by Gilda Radner.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and she got SNL, I think, right before they started shooting or right around the time they started shooting, and so she couldn't do it. Huh. But I often wonder, I kind of can't imagine this movie without Andrea Martin being Phil.
Yeah, she's great.
But yeah, she is. She's perfect in the role. Mm-hmm. It would have been interesting to see what Gilda Radner would have done with it, though, too.
I can't see Radner playing such a straight role, though, because, she's definitely the straight character through most of the movie. Whereas, I could see Radner playing Barb for sure.
Maybe, yeah.
But, I don't know about
Margot Kidder. Oh, Margot Kidder's so amazing.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm just trying to place Radner in any one of those roles, and I think she would probably work best at the Barb role, but who knows? Maybe she would have been great as a straight character. Sadly, we'll never know.
I know that we're kind of flailing around here a little bit, but Margot Kidder, I didn't get to say this a while ago. I like Amy Adams. Margot Kidder will always be Lois Lane to me.
Oh, yeah.
Even
without a doubt.
Noelle Neal, I liked her, but Margot Kidder is always going to be
Lois
Lane.
Yeah, without a doubt. At the Christmas event, Harrison calls home to tell his wife he can't find their daughter, but he's sure there's a good explanation for it, though he is concerned. Barb feeds a young boy wine from a plastic cup.
Didn't she say something about him being snockered or something?
Yeah, I think he's snockered.
Oh, Barb, you scam. This is the first use in tonight's double feature of the split diopter lens. So it's a bit jarring here because the background blurring on Harrison's side of the frame is pretty obvious.
Right.
But I think it's a cool technique. Like the diopter lens is this lens that basically is divided down the middle, and you have one focal length on one side and one focal length on the other side. Mm-hmm. It's not a technique they use anymore because typically you can account for that digitally.
Right.
Later on in Christmas Evil, we'll see the split diopter lens used again, and it's used in a way that's camouflaged really well, I thought. Mm-hmm. So I kind of like the technique. Sometimes it's a little jarring, but I didn't mind it here just because I really think we did need to see Mr. Harrison and we did need to see Barb, and it was probably the best way to shoot them both.
Yeah. Back at the house, Jess answers the phone. It's her buddy, the moaner, only this time he is an angry father wanting to know where Billy put the baby, whose name is Agnes. He goes in and out of the father and mother's voices in a very unsettling manner. Jesse hangs up the phone. Billy, what mother... I don't know if I can do this right. Billy, what you and Mother and I want to know is where's the baby?
That doesn't even sound remotely
I know,
like
I can't do
it. I can't. I wouldn't
try it again.
I wouldn't even try.
Yeah. Billy, what your mother and I want to know is where's the baby?
Yeah, how does he... Because the father's voice is really low, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Because Billy's the one that it always comes to mind,
Yeah.
It's me, Billy. Yeah. I named this little plant on the kitchen windowsill Billy. And so when I go to him, I go, it's you, Billy. I have to water him once a month. He's like a succulent. I killed his brothers. His brothers, I can't. He's the only plant I've ever kept alive.
You're a weird dude, man.
Thanks, buddy.
Harrison, Phil, and drunk Barb are at the police station to report Claire missing to the bumbling Sergeant Nash, played by Doug McGrath, better known as the gym teacher from another Bob Clark movie, Porky's. He tells them to fill out a report as Barb cracks a beer. He says most of the time, missing girls are usually with a boyfriend somewhere around campus. Harrison isn't satisfied.
Yeah, I think he also says they're usually out in a cabin somewhere. Like, this is the girl's father, man. That's not even consolation.
Yeah. This will make you feel better. She's probably somewhere having sex right now.
Yeah, she's probably shacked up
in
a Lincoln log cabin outside of town. Slathered in maple syrup because this is Canada.
Yeah. Back at the house, Mac is, again, struggling with the door. She drops the 2 bags of groceries and Jess helps her open it. She complains about the landlord not fixing it. Jess tells Mac about the phone call as Mac digs in her closet for a bottle. She finds one, but it's empty. Alcoholism equals comedy.
Yeah, that's what my Uncle Art used to say.
Oh boy. Edit. At the police station, the dim-witted Nash wants to know the phone number to the sorority house. Drunk Barb gets a sly grin on her face and replies,
Yeah, sure. It's Fellatio 20880. Fellatio. It's a new exchange. FE.
It's a new one on me. How do you spell it?
Capital F, E, little L, Latio.
Thanks.
Don't mention.
You know, I'm old, but not old enough to remember when phone numbers were coded like this. Do you?
I don't think they were still coded like this in the United States at that time. Yeah. I mean, I think maybe it was in Canada. It could have been in parts of the United States, but I don't ever remember having a phone number that was coded like that.
Yeah. Chris is playing hockey when Jess arrives to tell him that Claire is missing and the police aren't taking it seriously. Blood rushes to his face.
Or it could have been bruising, right?
Because he was playing hockey, yeah.
I guess that those hockey players, because Hindle could play hockey, Art Hindle, the actor who plays Chris, but they were beaming him with pucks out there because, they're goons.
Right. Meanwhile, Peter bangs out a classical number for his performance. He sweats profusely in his turtleneck and wool blazer as three judges look on. He finishes and his face drips with both sweat and disappointment. Back at the police station, a forlorn mother is reporting her daughter missing to Lieutenant Ken Fuller, played by the great John Saxon. Young Janice didn't come home after band practice. He asks if it's not unusual for a girl to be a couple hours late coming home from school. Well, that question's just asinine, Yeah. You expect your daughter to come home from school at a certain time, and after a couple of hours, she still hasn't arrived, and you think to yourself, well, shit, it's only been 2 hours. I'll give her a couple more. I mean, come on.
Right. Maybe by dessert she'll be home.
Right. Chris throws open the door and comes in hot, son. He calls Nash a stupid son of a bitch with a big mouth. Fuller comes in wondering what's happening. Chris tells him the situation, and Fuller tells Nash to get the file and throws a wreath at him.
Now, let me ask a question here. Yeah. When Chris comes in, I'm trying to remember who's with him. Is Jess with him?
I think so, Jess and maybe Phil.
Okay, because then there is kind of a little plot hole here then in this movie.
Okay.
In that later on when Lieutenant Fuller comes to the house, Phil, I think, introduces him to Jess as if they haven't met. Even though...
Well, maybe Jess wasn't with him then.
Well, in the commentary for the movie, Bob Clark does bring that up. He said it's not like a huge hole because they didn't really meet, but it is a little bit of a hole.
Yeah.
In that Jess doesn't go, yeah, I know who this dude is,
right,
or anything. So,
right.
But it's kind of weird. I mean, that's not really necessarily the biggest plot hole in this movie.
Yeah.
But it's not big enough to sink a movie either. So.
Sure, yeah. We return to the sorority house, and Mac has served Harrison dinner, but he's not hungry. He feels like he should be out looking for his daughter, but Mac says he should stay where he's safe. Barb is cutting up a porno mag and is just sloppy drunk. She tells him about a species of turtle that can screw for 3 straight days. How does she know this? Well, she went to the zoo and watched him, and it was boring, so she moved on to the zebras. They knocked it out in 30 seconds. She laughs and falls down onto the couch. Then there's a long pause as Phil, Mac, and Harrison stare at her. Barb says she can tell that they think it's all her fault that Claire went missing, that she drove her away.
You think it's my fault, don't you?
Barb, stop it.
Don't shit me. That's what you're all thinking. Why don't you just come right out and say it? You think that I drove her away. And if she's dead, you're gonna blame me.
Barb, for God's sake.
Well, that's what we're all thinking. Why doesn't someone just come right out and say it?
Barb, dear, you've had too much to drink. Mr. Harrison...
I don't give a shit about Mr. Harrison. I'm sick and tired of everyone in this house insinuating stuff and not coming out with what they mean.
Barb, why don't you go upstairs and lie down for a while?
Shut up. And you leave me alone. God damn you. You think it's my fault, don't you? You've been implying it all afternoon.
Barb, you're drunk. Go to bed.
Yeah, sure. Fine.
Andrea Martin's so great in everything.
She is.
I really like her in this role. She's kind of the big sister figure of the house, and the others respect her. It's just a shame that she does more work in the theater than the movies because she's a fascinating character actor.
She really is. She's got like a really interesting face, and her vibe is very in tune with what I would think Phil should be.
Yeah.
She's quiet, she stays in the background, and she kind of laughs at some of Barb's stuff sometimes, but when she needs to step up, she'll step up. And
Right.
when she needs to break down, she breaks down.
Even the strongest character has to let it out at some point, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like later on, when Jess yells up for Barb and Phil when she's told to leave the house, to me, that's Jess's version of really breaking down.
Yeah.
And yet she has this bravery shine through it.
Right.
So, yeah, I love Andrea Martin. She's so perfect in this role.
Right.
She's just so wonderful.
She is. You know, it's funny. She's in My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And I don't love that movie necessarily. It's funny, but she's by far my favorite character of that movie.
Who does she play in that?
She plays the lead character's aunt.
No kidding.
Yeah,
Wow.
she's so funny too.
I'm gonna have to watch it.
She does this funny little dance in it at one point where she's been drinking a little bit. She starts dancing.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
She comes up off of a couch and she's just got like her fingers in the air, and she's got her shoulders shrugged up, kind of swaying back and forth. It's hilarious.
She's hysterical.
I love her. Well, Peter's performance didn't go so well. His train is completely derailed as he destroys the piano with the heavy bass of a mic stand. The sound of the blunt object hitting the piano strings is used as background noise from here on out for the rest of the film to underscore the dark events playing out on screen.
Now, see, I thought the piano thing was used in the beginning, too.
Was it?
I don't know.
I only really noticed it after this scene.
Yeah, because they blended it so well.
Yeah.
But I think the interesting thing about that, too, is it's another hint that Peter could be the killer.
Right.
And
just something else to associate him with.
Yeah. And Bob Clark always claims that they're very honest about Peter and they don't try to bend over backwards or anything to make it look like he's the killer. And I disagree with that to a point. I mean, I think all this stuff in the early going is fine. Like, I don't have a problem with this at all. This actually did make me think, hey, I want to ask him, hey, give me your impression of your father. Yeah. How many voices can you do, sir? That's going to be part of the lineup.
Do you do children's voices? How about women's voices?
Yeah.
Hell, just bark like a dog while you're at it.
Just say this. Just say, it's me, Billy. But I do think that there is something at the end that I think, okay, you did go a little bit too far.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Chris arrives at the house with Jess and meets Harrison. We watch the scene from outside the dining room window just with the outdoor noises, distant sirens, dogs barking, and the struck piano string score as sound. We can't hear the dialogue at all. After a brief interaction, they all gather their things to leave. As Jess, Chris, Harrison, and Phil come out the front door, Mac tells Phil that she may not be there when they get back, as she is going to her sister's for the holiday. Phil asks her to check on Barb before she leaves.
Oh, the muted part of this scene is so cool.
It is. I love scenes like that.
I love that. It's just such a small thing, but it's a prime example of how Clark experiments in this movie so confidently.
Right.
And we know what this scene is about. I mean, we know what they're going to say. We probably could mouth the words along with them as they said it the first time we saw this scene.
Right.
So I like that he opts to create ambiance by giving us the noises outside, the sirens, the dog barking, a little bit of wind here and there.
Yeah.
I think that creates tension. I mean, because we're thinking, okay, these are harsh conditions outside and all these things are going on in the distance and the sirens remind us that there's a killer on the loose. It's just, works so well.
Well, it's great, too, that he does stuff like that because one thing that's really annoying in movies is if somebody has to explain something multiple times.
Right, exactly.
And, with characters like in this movie that are kind of scattered all over the place, and when they catch up, they have to tell the other one what's going on. It's great to have a scene like this where that builds tension without running over the same crap we've already seen in the movie.
Right, yeah. I think this is a perfect way to handle this scene. And I wish this guy just kept... I mean... I understand that he had to make some money, and A Christmas Story, I think, is a great movie, so I think that the fact that we got that movie from Bob Clark is a win.
Oh, yeah.
But I know that he was trying to get out of horror films right about this time, but man, we could have used him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly. I mean, there were a couple of horror movies that I'm not going to throw under the bus because I know that then all of the horror aficionados out there will completely write us off. But there are a few horror movies that are considered quote-unquote classics by people now that I think would have been better if they had been made by Bob Clark.
Yeah.
So it's just too bad. One of these days, we're going to get to the movie Death Dream or End of Night, whatever it's called on the print that you have, that Bob Clark made, the anti-war horror movie. It's really something. It's really something.
I haven't seen that one.
That one and Black Christmas make me wish that he had just kept doing horror movies and stopped to do A Christmas Story. I mean, I've never really watched the Porky's movies, so I don't.
The first Porky's is great.
Yeah.
It's a really good movie.
Yeah, so.
A search party is formed to look for Claire and Janice. Fuller leads the charge and organizes the party. A silhouette that looks like Peter sits against a tree across the street from the sorority house. Inside, an excited Mac is singing a ditty while she packs her suitcase. Of course, she's having a nip of her medicine while she's packing. Up in the attic, the cat's trying to eat Claire.
Of course, because that's what you do.
That's right. Our cats would eat us, too, if we died.
My cats would make me into a Thanksgiving dinner if I died.
They would.
They would make dressing, Brussels sprouts, gravy, mashed potatoes, all kinds of stuff. They would stick an apple in my mouth.
Roast you on a spit.
Yeah, roast me on a spit, especially Magnum. I mean, I don't like to divulge too much personal, but my cats are named Magnum and Rockford. And Magnum is by de facto my cat because he's the less smart of the two. And we have a love, hate, love, hate relationship. And that's in the space of like 5 minutes. So if I died, they wouldn't even come up and, Magnum wouldn't come up and try to lick. He'd be like, okay, let's get this dude on a plate.
Right.
Get my bib.
Mac hears meowing and calls out to the cat. She slowly follows the meowing up to the attic's entrance. The cab driver's laying on the horn outside. Mac sticks her head up into the attic and sees Claire. The creep is holding a large meat hook attached to a rope and pulley. That's something I didn't quite understand. It's like, why is that up there?
I know.
He swings the hook towards Mac's head, hooks it, and pulls her up into the attic, killing her. And this is where I lose interest in the movie. No, I'm just kidding.
This is where you lost me, Bob Clark.
That's right. The cabbie bangs on the door, calls out to no one, gets pissed, and drives away. This is the part that creeps me out the most about the film, too, is we see the point of view of the killer, and he's screaming and crying and moaning and trashing the attic. And the rocking chair with Claire's body is just moving back and forth. It's truly, truly scary.
Yeah.
To be so simple.
Yeah.
The camera work's really frantic, but it's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it so much, man. It's just, it's mayhem up in this attic. It's great.
I know. It's really something. And apparently Clark got some guff about that when he first put it in there because people said that, oh, well, you shouldn't show the killer being weak and all that stuff. And his point was that he wanted to include it because he wanted to show how unhinged and volatile this guy is. And
Why would they think that made him look weak?
I have no idea.
I don't think it makes him look weak at all. I think it makes him look crazier.
Yeah, I have no idea. Well, I mean, we've talked about a couple of movies on this show where people say, oh, you should do this. And looking back on it, you're so elated that the filmmaker did the opposite because what that was suggested was so stupid.
Yeah.
But I really like this too, though, because I don't know if it's something we really see in modern slasher films.
Right.
I mean, have you ever seen Jason Voorhees go?
No, because he's too boring. He just nibbles about.
I mean, I've never seen him go ape shit.
No.
Michael Myers, I don't really recall ever seeing anything like that.
Right.
I mean, the closest thing, I guess, with Michael Myers is when he kills that one kid and he kind of cocks his head to the side, kind of like he's...
Like a confused dog?
Yeah, or like he's looking at a painting or something.
Yeah.
But I don't really recall seeing that, and I like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe Maniac. Huh.
Maybe.
I don't know. Now I got to go watch a whole bunch of horror movies.
Well, another thing I like about this, too, is the sound. Like the sound is amped up on this scene, and his voice is screaming and everything is almost like squelching,
Yeah, his voice and panting, even when we're in his POV, sounds like a voiceover. It doesn't sound like it's source sound.
And it sounds like somebody that's right up on a microphone screaming into it. Just like loud, abrasive screaming.
Right.
And the trashing of the attic, the bird cages are being whipped around and everything, and it's all just together. It's just chaotic.
And I think it's kind of shot in a fisheye. I think it might be shot with kind of a fisheye kind of lens, so you're getting a lot in the frame and it's kind of warped.
Yeah.
As far as Mac's death goes, Clark felt that was weak. He said that his intention was not that the hook hooked her head and she got pulled up into the the attic, even though that's the way the edit shook out. And he said that was just his fault. He talks about how he usually would give himself a couple improbables in a movie, something that might be improbable, but you could maybe make a case for it, so we could go ahead and do it. He said he never wanted to give himself impossibles in a movie, and he felt like he messed up with this scene because it was impossible. It wasn't like that hook could have hooked her. His intention was that the hook jarred her or knocked her unconscious or whatever, and then Billy dragged her up into the attic. So if you listen to the sound on this scene, it could go either way. I mean, it kind of sounds like she's still alive after the hook hits and then she's pulled up, but the edit doesn't really bear that out as well as it should, or, you know, even in Bob Clark's opinion, apparently. So,
yeah. Back at the park, Chris, Phil, Jess, and Harrison huddle around a fire. Jess says she has to go back home to meet Peter. Phil says she'll be along soon. Then we get a shot tilting up the side of the sorority house to the attic window. Inside, we see Claire's wrapped, lifeless face, and then refocus to see Mac hanging from the hook in the background. Suddenly, a scream rings out, and we go back to the park. A woman in the party finds Janice's body and is screaming. Harrison and Janice's mother run toward the noise, as do Chris and Phil and the others. Janice's mother approaches the scene, and just as she begins to scream in agony, we get a loud pre-lap of the phone ringing, and we're back to the sorority house. Jess returns just in time to answer because she always does. Seriously, she's like the sorority switchboard.
Hello, may I help you?
Yeah. The creep imitates a crying baby, then jumps to the mother's voice crying out, "Filthy Billy, I know what you did," and then chuckling and screaming throughout. Jess slams the phone down and calls out to Mac. The phone calls are haunting.
They really are.
They're so well done and so creepy.
I know.
The screaming distorting over the phone, it just makes me cringe, dude.
We broke this out again here in detail because the editing here is really interesting. The way he goes between the sorority house and the park, back and forth, setting up all these things. Like Jess says she has to leave. Then he gives us a shot of what she's going home to, but she doesn't even realize it.
Yeah.
Then we have the ring that takes us back to the park, and then the other scream at the park goes into the phone. It's just so good, man.
Yeah.
Like, such great use of sound design and cutting.
Definitely.
Knowing how long to hold a shot or when to get out of a shot. It's just so good, man.
It is.
So good.
Jess picks up the phone and calls the police station, wondering what can be done about the obscene phone calls. A shadowy figure is creeping down the stairs behind her.
Peter, Jesus, you scared the hell out of me. Why didn't you say something?
Yeah? Well, you scared the hell out of me, too. What was all that yelling about? I was upstairs having a little sleep. I hope you don't mind, but it got a little cold out there waiting for you.
I'm sorry I was late, Peter.
Yeah.
Claire Harrison is missing. I was out with a search party looking for her. Yes. Hello?
Oh, no.
I want to report something. No, I don't want to hold. How did the recital go?
How do you think it went?
Peter, what kind of a game are you playing? I thought you wanted to talk, so why don't you quit attacking me and we'll try to have a rational adult conversation?
Nash comes on the phone and dismisses her calls.
Okay, now calm down, lady. Let's have the story. Oh, yeah? What's the address? 6 Belmont Street. How many calls? Well, did you call the phone company? Oh, yeah? Well, miss, we're very busy here. There's been a child murdered in the park. I don't know when we can get a man on it. It's probably just one of your boyfriends playing a little joke. Yeah, well, I'll report it and try to get a man on it just as soon as possible. I'm sorry, miss.
He takes her address as Phil, Chris, and Harrison look over his shoulder. They disconnect and Jess stares off concerned. Peter asks her what's wrong and she tells him they found Janice. He says Claire's fine. He moves on and says that he's leaving the conservatory and he is going to marry Jess. She said that when they first got together, he told her he wanted to be a concert pianist, and she said that she had big dreams and plans too. She still wants to live her dreams, and he can't expect her to give them up because his plans have changed. She tells him she doesn't want to marry him. Without any emotion, he says, all right, what about the baby?
This is an instance where Clark could have used the split diopter lens like he did earlier. I mean, he probably wouldn't have been able to use it very effectively because of the way they were staged, but he could have staged it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But he said in the commentary that he didn't want to throw focus to Peter in the background, that he just wanted to stay on Jess because the drama was with her. I mean, I guess he could have thrown focus to Peter, but it seems like that could have gotten tough as far as the camera moves are concerned. Mm-hmm. And then you're talking about a lot of editing and things like that, which means extra shooting. So he opted to just shoot it the way he shot it, kind of just a single shot with focus on her and then him in the background. And I agree with that. I think it's really great. And I think in this situation, it also does something else for the audience, because subconsciously at this point, if you're seeing this movie for the first time, you're thinking, hey man, this Peter guy, he's a real strong suspect here to be this killer. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that he's out of focus in this scene, I think kind of subconsciously plays into that. Also, I just can't stand the way he tells her that I'm quitting the conservatory and we're getting married.
Yeah.
Just come on. This is the scene that we were talking about earlier where I said he lies to her. Yeah. He's lying to her here.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that she shuts him down because he lies when he says she can still have the baby and do what she wants to do.
Yeah.
He will not let that happen.
If you've had a child, unless you're rich and you have a nanny, you can't do anything you want to do.
No,
your life's on lockdown at that point.
Right, right.
You can hire a sitter and go out to a movie once in a while, but you're not going to go see the world or whatever with a baby at home. It's not happening.
I'm glad that she doesn't fall for it. I'm glad that she just sticks to her guns and she's too smart. And she says, okay, no, just get out.
Right.
But, oh, man, I really want to punch Peter in the face right now. And I like Care Delay.
Yeah.
But I want to punch him in the face.
Yeah.
Means he's a good actor.
Right.
He's this week's Steven.
We cut to the police station, and Phil, Chris, and Harrison have brought the phone call situation to Fuller. He asked Nash why he didn't point this out. Nash says he didn't want to bother him. Fuller tells Nash that it could be an important piece of info and to look into it. They thank Fuller and leave his office. One of the other detectives laughs as Fuller reads the phone number on the report, and the fellatio joke comes into play.
Sergeant Nash, could I speak to you for a minute?
Yeah, sure, Lieutenant.
What's this?
Well, that's the number at the sorority house.
Fellatio?
Yeah, it's a new exchange. FE.
New exchange?
Yeah, Felicia. One of the girls that was in this afternoon gave it to me.
She gave it to you?
Yeah.
Nash, I don't think you could pick your nose without written instructions.
I know. Something dirty, ain't it?
I love that line. The laughing detective has a really infectious laugh. It's hard not to tear up during this scene. It's so funny.
I love how Nash says that last line. It's so great. I'd be really interested to know if David Lynch ever saw this movie, because this scene in particular feels like something that could have been in a police station in Twin Peaks.
Right.
Because that laughing detective, I mean, he has a few lines in the movie, but it's not like we get to know this guy. Right. You know, he's just like his own little private universe over there, just completely falling apart over this fellatio joke. You know,
and it's funny too. He doesn't have much going on in the movie, but you know that he's the guy that can really get John Saxon. You know? He's the guy that can really just get Fuller anytime he wants to, just by laughing or sharing a glance at him or something like that.
Yeah, I don't see him most of the time. I just see him sitting at the desk in this movie. I mean, they're standing in front of a map once, I think, but other times I just see this detective. He's just sitting at his desk, nothing really on the desk. He's just hanging out.
I think he's in the final scene when they come to the house.
Oh, that's a good point.
But other than that, he's just the guy laughing behind
just
the desk.
hanging out.
Peter shatters a Christmas ornament on the sorority house tree. He's incensed that Jess plans to abort the baby.
You selfish bitch. You're talking about killing our baby as though you were having a wart removed.
Now can you see why I didn't want to tell you?
What the hell are you trying to do to me?
What are you doing to yourself?
Jess, let's get one thing straight. You are not going to abort that baby.
Peter, you're not going to tell me what I can and cannot do.
Jess, if you try getting an abortion...
I think you better leave.
If you try getting an
I
abortion...
said get out.
You're going to be very sorry.
As he's trying to storm out of the house, Fuller and the gang arrive. He brushes past them and slams the door behind them. Fuller's spidey senses tingle.
Now, there are a couple of elements to consider in this little piece of this scene.
Mm-hmm.
First, it's important to watch the deep, deep shadow over Jess's left shoulder, I think.
Yeah.
Because it seems to change ever so slightly, and that will inform something later on.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when Peter steps into the lamplight toward the end of the scene and the way the light hits his right eye, that's terrifying.
Right.
Because Cara Delay has terrifying eyes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also kind of used as a subtle frame-up for something that happens later on in the movie, too.
You're such a tease.
You bet your ass, big boy.
Fuller has brought a phone technician named Graham, played by Les Carlson, with him. Graham calls into the phone company to let them know he's testing the lines. Fuller questions Phil and Jess about Claire's character, the last time they saw her, is she dating anyone other than Chris, etc., etc. Graham has tapped the phone so that it will ring in at the police station and the phone company. He tells him to keep the caller on the line as long as possible so they can get his location. Fuller says there's a cop stationed outside the house and he'll be there all night. As Fuller and Graham leave, Peter lurks in the shadows.
I love the islands of light in this sequence. The cinematography in this movie, Reg Morris is a cinematographer, is excellent. It's just so perfect. The darks are very dark. Then you have these little splashes of light here and there. Everywhere they go, Claire's room, there's a pop of light here and there. Sometimes it's a wall light or like a wall sconce type thing. Sometimes it's, a lamp hanging from the ceiling or Christmas lights or whatever. They have the blown out Christmas lights with the halo effect. I'm a sucker for that.
Oh, yeah.
We go and talk about that in the next movie. But I love that. I love when Fuller, Jess, and Phil come downstairs and they're joking kind of on the stairs. They're talking about Barb, I think, in the fellatio joke or something. But the shadows are so rich. And when they walk through the hallway, you see like this little light on the wall that's really kind of warm. And I just love it. I just like the cinematography in this is just so spot on.
Phil breaks down. She just knows that Claire is dead. She needs to rest, so Jess sends her to bed. Meanwhile, we check up on Claire, and she's still dead. The creep is rocking her in the chair and has tucked a doll under her arm. As Jess waits by the phone, the creep exits the attic. Barb starts gasping loudly, and Jess runs to her room. She's had a nightmare about a stranger coming into her room, and that's triggered an asthma attack. Jess gives her an inhaler, and Barb recovers and falls back to sleep. As Jess is transfixed by their harmony, the creep enters Barb's room. He's in character. Barb plays Agnes, and the creep plays Billy. He wakes her and stabs her to death with a glass unicorn. So Peter's been wearing a green turtleneck sweater all night, right?
Yep.
He has moppish hair.
Yes.
And when the killer enters Barb's room, all we can see of his face is light hitting his eye.
Right.
And the outline of his hair looks like Peter's. Plus, you can see the killer's green sleeves as he drives the unicorn's horn into her abdomen. Yeah, this is all really important later on.
Now who's the tease?
Yeah, shut up. The choir finishes their song, and Jess gives him a hearty clap. A lady arrives and runs up to the leader of the choir. She tells him to get the children in the car immediately without revealing the death of Janice. The phone starts ringing. It's our boy, and he's role-playing again. Father, Mother, and Billy are all going at it. Flora listens in, and Graham tries to find the source of the call.
Hello? Hello? Who's there?
But your mother and I must know it.
don't quite know how to explain what the phone company's inner workings look like other than to say it looks like a library made of steel.
Yeah.
You know, there are rows of shelves that have moving pieces of metal machinery on them, and somehow if you find the right moving metal machine, you've got your source. I don't know.
Next week, Ryan will describe the internet.
Well, if you haven't seen this movie, you son of a bitch, if you haven't seen this movie and you don't know what 70s phone companies look like, which I didn't, then this is kind of weird to look at.
Right. No.
Asshole.
I like that. I love the visual of it, though.
Oh, yeah, it's very cool.
Basically, it looks like if you had a big hardware store, but instead of metal shelves, you just had gears and switches and wires and all this stuff, little lights here and there.
Metal boxes that just pop up and down and just weird.
And it's great because the way Clark uses it is really cool visually.
Yeah.
There's one of the later tries on the trace, he has the shot where he shoots Graham's face through this little opening in the machines, you know?
Yeah.
And it's so cool. It's such a great shot. It's just kind of like he walked in there and said, okay, here's how we're going to shoot this thing for scale. And then when we want to get artsy-fartsy about it, these are the shots we're going to do.
Yeah.
Everything works so well.
Right.
I don't know if I've told you or not, but I love the cinematography in this movie.
That's a word on the street, isn't it?
Yeah. Everybody's talking about it.
They're like, I haven't seen the movie, but Chuck really loves the cinematography.
He loves the cinematography in this movie, so it must be good.
It must be good. Right as the call disconnects, the voice says, "It's like having a wart removed." Jess recoils in horror and says, "Oh my God." Ooh. The call wasn't long enough to find the source. Fuller calls and lets her know that they didn't get him. He asks why she said, "Oh my God," and she says that the call was just getting to her. He wants to know who Peter was. She tells him that he is her boyfriend and they just had a fight. He asks what the fight was about, but a commotion in the office distracts him and he tells her he will call her back. A grouchy farmer shot an officer in the ass with birdshot for trespassing on his property, as you do.
Yeah. Okay, so here's where the shadow over Jess's shoulder in the earlier scene with Peter comes into play.
Yeah.
Because according to Clark, there's a really deep shadow over her shoulder in that scene, and that is the killer on the stairs listening to their conversation, to Jess and Peter's conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how he knows to use that line about the wart.
Okay.
It's a bit of a misdirect, but it is, according to Clark, it's explainable.
Well, he doesn't make the shadow very evident. Like the first time I watched the movie, I didn't see that shadow, but then I saw it in subsequent viewings.
Right.
So, if you don't see that shadow, then at the end you're like, well, what about that part?
Once you listen to the commentary and realize what's going on, you think, oh man, I got to go back and watch that. I had to watch it probably 3 or 4 times on top of the 15 times that I've seen this movie in my lifetime.
Yeah.
But I had to watch it over and over to really get the sense of that shadow there or the little bit of a texture difference there.
Yeah.
And you know what? Even so, that's after hearing the commentary. So that could be my eye playing tricks on me too.
Could be.
The cinematography in this movie, it can play tricks on your eyes at times.
Yeah.
Because of the deep shadows and stuff. There are times that I think, you see stuff in there that may or may not be there. So, oh God, I love this movie. I love this movie.
What about the cinematography? What'd you think about that?
It's really good.
Is it good?
It's really.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty nice myself.
I don't know if we've talked about that, but it's really good.
Yeah. Jess explains the asthma attack and the phone calls. The killer looks on through a crack in the wall. Jess tells Phil that the killer repeated what she and Peter argued about word for word. Phil doesn't think Peter would do such a thing, but Jess is getting scared. The phone rings. It's Peter, and he's distraught over the abortion. Fuller wants to call Trace, but Peter disconnects before Graham can find the source.
Damn it, Graham.
Yeah, no shit. Fuller calls back asking about the abortion. In the background, the shadow of the killer is moving on the wall. As they talk it out, Jess remembers that Peter is in the house when one of the calls came in, so that rules him out. Yet Fuller still wants to talk to Peter.
And it really doesn't rule him out.
Not really. Phil is in the kitchen, and what appears to be a peeping Tom in the kitchen window causes her to scream. Jess comes running out, and it turns out to be a couple of bumpkins from the search party checking up on them. They tell the ladies to lock their doors and windows. This gives Jess the realization that the kitchen window and the back door are the only windows and doors in the entire house that are locked. Fuller tells Nash to get the Dean of Admissions on the horn and that he wants all of Peter's records. He also tells him to send a car out front for him. and to make sure he irons his pants for him, and to feed and water his Pomeranian. Those last 2 things were made up.
Yeah, but Fuller does have a Pomeranian named Chet.
Chet, yeah. Good dog.
It's a nice puppy.
Phil is going around the house locking the windows. She enters Barb's room and calls out to her to see if she's awake. The door slams behind her. Meanwhile, Fuller enters the music room and sees the destroyed piano.
I love that match cut, man.
Yeah.
The one door slamming and the other opening, and you just see the dark room with just Fuller's silhouette there. Ah, it's so cool, man.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
That's some pretty good cinematography, isn't it?
Shut up. Just shut your face. Oh man, it's like you don't even watch movies, you know?
I watch them and I agree with you 100% about the cinematography, but busting your balls on this has been fun.
Am I the only one who, when I turn on that projector, actually sits and watches the movie on the screen?
I just told you I liked it too.
Oh my God. That's just beautiful. A lot of filmmakers would have made a meal out of Phil's murder.
Yeah.
They would have really hit it. And he does hit like a little bit of a spike there, but it's not big. And the way the door closes, it's forceful, but it's not overly forceful.
Yeah. Back at the house, Jess locks the door. The phone rings. That damn Billy's up to no good again. An officer tells Fuller about the phone call, and they've patched it through to the radio. Graham finds a source and passes it on to Nash. Nash tells Fuller the calls are coming from inside the house, son. Fuller radios to the cops stationed outside the house. He doesn't respond because he's been bleeding profusely from a large cut across his throat.
That's why you shouldn't shave in your car.
Yeah, no shit. Fuller calls back to Nash and tells him to call the house and tell Jess to exit the house, but don't tell her why.
Yeah, all right. Let's send Nash to do this job.
Right. And he tells Nash, he's like, I'm counting on you. Don't blow this, you know?
It's just like,
so this is
okay.
So this is what happens.
Yeah.
Nash calls and tells her to hang up the phone, walk to the door, and exit the house. No questions asked. Of course, she asks questions, and Nash, being the idiot he is, tells her the calls are coming from inside the house. She drops the phone and calls out to Phil and Barb, but they aren't answering. She begins to panic, but calms down, grabs a fire poker, and heads upstairs because she's a big old dummy.
That's bullshit. She is brave. She doesn't want to leave her friends behind.
Brave and crazy are two different things. I don't know, man.
She looked at Peter, and she was strong-willed about the abortion. Looking at that, I understand this move. And this is coming from a guy who would totally do what Nash says in this instance. I would not ask questions. I'd be out that door before he got to the leaving part of his speech. I'd be like, Phil and Barb, lots of luck,
I just feel like she's calling out to them from downstairs.
Right.
She knows that Phil is awake. Barb, maybe not. But she knows that Phil is awake. So if Phil's not answering her after 2 or 3 yells, then she's probably dead and you should probably get out of the house. But instead, she goes to check it all out. That's a horror movie trope that always drives me crazy.
I can understand that. I think, though, in this situation, I do think that it is in line with her character.
Yeah.
In that she's brave. And I think, too, that she calls out to them, and we do see her freak out when she tries to, scream to them. And when she doesn't hear anything, she's just kind of like, I got to go up there and try to do something. Honestly, though, too, as we'll see later on, she can't get out the front door anyway.
Yeah.
It's stuck. But I'm okay with the fact that she grabs the poker and goes upstairs.
Well, at least you're happy about it.
The cinematography of the scene is great.
Goddamn right it is.
This is me punching myself in the balls over and over again.
Jess busts open Barb's door to find their dead, bloodied bodies. The killer is behind the door. We can see his eye between the door and the pane.
It's me, Billy. Agnes, don't you tell what we did, Agnes.
She slams the door into him and runs downstairs. Billy screams like the doorknob struck his Santa sack and chases her. Jess makes it to the front door, but it sticks, so she can't get out. As she tries to run to the back door, Billy grabs her by the hair from the landing, but she gets away and heads down into the basement and locks herself inside. Billy screams and slams himself into the door over and over, but the tiny pin latch holds. He finally stops when we hear him calmly walk out of the house.
That's so cool, that little shot of that latch.
Yeah.
Oh.
Jess moves down into the basement, and then we have a quick shot of the cops en route to the sorority house. Back at the house, a voice from the outside calls out to Jess. It's Peter. She hides in the shadows as Peter kicks out a window and enters the basement. He sees her and says he's been worried about her and moves in. The cops arrive to hear Jess screaming. Fuller kicks in the basement door, and he and his team move in. They find Peter dead in Jess's lap, and Jess unconscious holding a bloody fireplace poker. Jess is asleep in her bed. There are several cops, Harrison, Chris, a doctor, and Fuller all talking at regular volume around her bedside, so she is out like a light. The police have wrapped up the crime scene. The reporters have arrived, and Fuller says it's time to leave. Harrison passes out, and Chris and the doctor help him out and are taking him to the hospital. They turn out the lights and leave Jess alone in her bed. The camera pans around the silent house. The piano strings ring out. There's giggling and cooing and singing coming from the attic. The inept cops have missed the attic altogether. Claire and Mac are still up there, dead, and so is Billy, very much alive. The camera passes Claire and goes out of the window and zooms out to a shot of the house from across the street as we watch the house and the cops stationed out front. The phone starts ringing. It gets louder and louder as the credits roll.
Wow. What an ending.
Phenomenal.
I do, however, have questions.
Of course you do. Let's hear them.
Why did Peter go to the basement windows to look for Jess?
Right.
How did he know she was down there? And if he was watching the joint, then how did he not see Billy?
Right.
The logistics of that have never made sense to me.
Yeah.
It was a decision that was made that really seemed to almost bend over backwards to make him look like the killer. And I know that they try to paper over it with him saying, "What's all the yelling about? I heard all the yelling." But could he really hear that outside? In a house where the phone calls are coming from inside the house, this guy is doing 3 voices and screaming bloody murder half the time. And you're telling me that they're on the phone with him and he's in the same house, but they can't hear what's going on upstairs.
Right.
The fact that he's upstairs in Mac's room, I think, is where he's making the phone calls from. So I never understood how they couldn't hear him yelling like that.
Right.
That stuff doesn't really jive. I'm willing to forgive the phone thing just because, honestly, the movie's so creepy that I just buy into it.
Oh, yeah.
And go with it. The Peter thing at the end, that sounded dirty. The issue with Peter at the end is different because that feels a little forced to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't understand that. What do you think? I mean, do you think that he has a logical reason?
Well, I mean, at one point they realized that when the 2 bumpkins come to the back door, they realized that the back door and the kitchen window were the only windows and doors that were locked.
Right.
Which means the front door's been unlocked the whole time, so why didn't he just come in?
Right.
And she's trying to get out the front door after she's informed that the calls are coming from inside the house. But the door's stuck and everything, so why doesn't he just come in the front door? Why is he snooping around and looking through windows? And you're right, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because to me it sounds like Billy, after he's done banging against the basement door, it sounds like he walks out the front door.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's true or not.
Mm-hmm.
But from the ending of the movie indicates that Billy went back up into the attic.
Right.
So that doesn't quite work out the way it should. It doesn't kill the movie for me at all.
No.
Because everything else is so damn good in this movie.
Right.
At the end, when Jess is lying in her bed asleep, and they do that, they start on her kind of in a medium close-up, and then they zoom back, and then dolly out, and they settle right outside the door. And I think they cut back into her one more time right before Mr. Harrison passes out. Oh, man, that's so cool. Just like, and I love how they use the sound design then that you hear things, especially if you're watching this movie while listening to it on earbuds or headphones or whatever, or maybe even like surround sound. You hear the voices in all different parts of the house. Apparently not the attic, but every other part of the house. And I like the way they use that sound design. They bring certain lines up when they're pertinent. They take certain lines back down.
Yeah.
I love that. And of course, the way the camera then moves through the house to show the various parts. I mean, what does that remind you of, right? Like Halloween.
Yeah.
And finally, the shot where we go through the attic, we go out the window, and then we're across the street, looking at this sorority house basically from the same distance that we were in the beginning, except that we're higher this time. And the fact that we're higher to me, kind of makes it feel like, okay, now we know more about what's going on. Now we're well and truly ahead of the cops because we know that Billy's still alive and they don't. So we take kind of like a little bit more of this godlike position where we're a little bit higher. And of course, we're sitting there and we're watching the cops standing out there in front and the phone starts ringing.
Yeah.
And we knew that was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I love this movie. Yeah. I love it. I watch it every Christmas and I sneak it in every summer too, at least once.
This is the quintessential Christmas horror movie.
Absolutely.
There are many. There's Silent Night, Deadly Night, and Christmas Evil, which we're about to cover.
Right.
And a number of others, but none of them stand up to this one.
No.
None of them.
No.
This is about as good as it gets with horror movies, in my opinion.
I agree.
For all its flaws, it's still one of the best horror movies.
What about remake of Rembrandt, though?
Absolutely not. It's a Rembrandt through and through. It's been remade a couple of times already, and the one that's about to come out, it just looks god-awful.
This episode is going to be released, I think, on the day that the new Black Christmas movie comes out.
Well, this is in no way synergy because we're not promoting that movie.
No, we're not.
This just happens to be our Christmas episode.
Right.
And, this happens to be the one we're covering, the greatest of all time. So.
Yeah, and we wanted to deliver it before Christmas rather than a couple days after Christmas.
Right. We don't want you all Christmased out and then trying to listen to this episode. So.
Right, exactly. Because it's full of cheer. It's full of Christmas cheer. It's just like brimming with it. I mean,
right.
He's been hitting the eggnog all morning.
I have. I have.
It smells like a Muay Thai gym in here.
Oh, Jesus.
Oof. Woof, son. But
I sweat maple syrup.
But there's like a fan-made film out there too. So this movie has been remade like 3 times now. And
it's 3 times too many.
Exactly. I think it's a Rembrandt as well, just to be explicit about the whole thing.
And so the final word is don't sleep on Black Christmas. Make sure you check it out. And the cinematography is amazing in this movie.
I've heard that. I've just got to watch it for that next time.
Yeah. I know a guy who loves the cinematography in this movie. Just raves about it.
Shut up.
He's got a boner for that cinematography.
Shut up.
And now, intermission. Refreshment time.
2 minutes until showtime.
Coming soon to this drive-in theater.
A drifter came riding out of the West. You know him as Clint Eastwood. The citizens of Largo didn't know him at all.
What did you say your name was again?
I didn't. Fear was in their greeting. Murder was in their minds.
You don't want to get shot. You don't want your shops or your houses burned. You don't want your women touched. You don't want anything to happen. Except you're afraid to do anything about it.
One man against one town. Not bad odds. They didn't know him when he drifted into town. Now they'll never forget him.
Who are you?
1 minute until showtime.
Coming soon to this drive-in theater.
I'd like to speak to Mr. Dickinson. I don't think you want to do that.
The only job you're going to get in here is pushing up daisies from a pine box. Now get out.
Charlie.
I never wanted to go away. I never stopped loving.
Don't!
What name were you given at birth, stupid white man?
I'm William Blake.
And you are a dead man. That weapon will replace your tongue, and your poetry will now be written with blood.
Johnny Depp, Gary Farmer, Lance Henriksen, Michael Wincott, Millie Avital, Crispin Glover, Iggy Pop, Billy Bob Thornton, Jared Harris, and Gabriel Byrne, John Hurt, Alfred Molina, with special appearance by Robert Mitchum.
You William Blake?
Yes, I am. Do you know my poetry?
That there Blake fella keeps on shooting marshals. I'll wind up liking him. Dead Man. The new film by Jim Jarmusch. Original soundtrack by Neil Young.
It's showtime.
And now, please enjoy our feature presentation.
Our second feature tonight shows what happens when Mommy does more than kiss Santa Claus under the mistletoe. This is Christmas Evil.
This Christmas, Santa's going to make everyone happy. The grown-ups and the kids, the non-believers and the screamers. This Christmas, you better believe in Santa, or he'll slay you.
Merry Christmas, Frank.
Christmas Evil, the night he dropped in.
We open on a snowy scene of a tastefully lit suburban house with a super title that reads Christmas Eve 1947. The camera tilts up and we see a huge full moon as we hear a whip crack, sleigh bells ring, and a voice recite the beginning of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas.
'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there.
Inside, a mother and her two young sons sit on a staircase, watching through the railing as Santa Claus comes down the chimney. He sees a table set up with goodies and has a little snack before unloading presents from his big red bag. He lays the presents under the tree and fills the stockings. One of the boys giggles, causing Santa to look in their direction. He sees the kid, smiles, lays a finger on the side of his nose, and up the chimney he goes. What a wonderful sight. Afterward, the boys debate whether or not Santa was actually their father. One of the boys insists that it wasn't. He walks back downstairs and is horrified to see Santa kneeling in front of his mother next to the Christmas tree, running his hands up and down her legs.
Ho, ho, ho.
This distresses the boy, and he runs back upstairs, all the way to the attic, where he picks up a snow globe and angrily smashes it on the floor. Then he picks up a shard of broken glass and cuts it into the palm of his hand. The blood rains down on the snow-covered house in the broken globe scene. Then the screen goes red and the opening credits roll.
Everything about this opening scene is incredible to me.
It's a really great opening scene.
It's a great
it really is.
opening scene. It just works. And the interesting thing about this opening scene is that it's very surreal, and it actually hooks up really well with the ending of the movie.
Yeah.
This and the ending made me try to find the point in this movie that I could look at and say, this is someone's dream or this is someone's thought, but that it's not something that's actually happening. Because especially when he and his mother and his brother disappear off the stairs at the end of the scene, where they're just like poof, and they're gone.
Yeah.
That's such a weird, surreal, dream logic type thing that it almost makes me think, wait a minute, is this him remembering it? I mean, I think this opening thing is his dream because we go to the next scene here. We're going to see an adult Harry wake up. So I think this is his dream. I don't think this is a memory necessarily.
Yeah.
The cinematography is fantastic in this scene, and I think that's part of why it's so effective. Ricardo Aronovich, probably have to talk about him again at some point because he shot this movie called Missing with Jack Lemmon and Sissy Spacek, and it's based on a true story. And Lemmon goes down to investigate. His son was arrested in South America, and at one point the neighbors across the street are telling differing stories about what happened to his son, how he was arrested. And as they're telling this, Lemmon is looking across the street at his son's house, and he's seeing all the different scenes playing out with all their differences in it. The way Aronovich shoots that is very similar to some of the things that he does here in this scene. There's, disappearing people and the way that he kind of reconfigures a frame but keeps it static, so we're looking at one picture, but he finds a way to reconfigure things and make things appear and disappear. And he does it in a way that's very elegant. I think that the moves that he makes in this, he and Lewis Jackson, the director, together, the moves that they make in this opening scene are just very elegant. I can hear the storm brewing, so it probably doesn't match up with the rest of the film for some people, like the guy behind the other microphone. But
I'm just listening.
But yeah, but you're listening angrily. That's the thing.
We can't even see each other,
and I'm triggered. And I never get triggered except when you're around. But
just let my silence tell the story.
He'll refuse to recap the rest of the movie. Just be like, I'm a silent protest. But yeah, I thought the opening was really great. There is a whole laundry list of things that make this feel like it's probably more of a dream than it is a reality. The one big thing I think which solved the problem for me in this opening scene is the way that I think Harry is dreaming this. The thing with Santa and the snack is very strange in that it looks very kind of ceremonial. Like that snack table, it looks like a little altar. It's just weird. And he has this thing where Santa grabs a towel and he wipes off his boots, which I don't know why Santa would do that. And then there's this bowl of water where he actually washes off his fingers and then dries them with the same towel they used on his boots. I don't know how those get clean, but he proceeds to then eat the snack that looks like bread and butter or bread and cheese or something.
It definitely wasn't cookies.
But it was something there that felt very ritualistic to me and very kind of ceremonial. And it kind of then informs the way Harry goes apeshit when he sees Santa basically getting ready to go down on mom,
Right.
You wouldn't think that that would necessarily scar a kid to the point where he commits homicide, but hey, I mean, mileage varies, right?
I'm sorry, what?
I hate you. I really hate you. You know what? I'm just going to cover this movie on the short reel next week. Actually, next week on the short reel, I probably will break down this opening scene in depth to a more appreciative audience. I'm sorry, a more appreciative partner.
No.
Can I even call you a partner?
Are you okay, buddy?
Can I even call you a partner at this point?
Are you that upset that we disagree about a movie?
No, I know.
Oh, you're so sad.
I'm not upset because I know how much you enjoy being wrong. So I like to give you something you like. It's Christmas,
I think when we get down to it, you're still not going to like what I have to say about it, but I think you're expecting me to just shit all over it, and I'm not going to.
Yeah.
But I do have an opinion about it. So
sure.
We'll get there.
Last words.
We flash forward 32 years to the present, which is 1980. Harry Stadling, played by Brandon Maggart, hops out of bed wearing Santa jammies and a cap. He puts on Winter Wonderland and dances a little jig in his living room. Harry foams up some shaving cream and lathers up his face. He practices a holly jolly laugh in the mirror with the foamy Santa beard. But when he energetically jerks his arms while humming a few bars of Deck the Halls, he nicks his cheek with the razor and blood trickles down over the white shaving cream. And that brings on flashes of when he cut himself with the glass and his mother doing more than just kissing Santa Claus. Next, we see him posing with a pillow under a red blanket in front of a full-length mirror, similar to a woman who stuffs a pillow under her shirt to see how she will appear when she's pregnant. Again, Harry practices a few jolly laughs, watching how his artificial belly shakes, but then he stares his reflection in the eye and sternly points an accusatory finger, as in, you better watch out. Harry's on the roof of the apartment building with binoculars, panning the side of the opposite building, looking at windows and hoping to catch a peek at his little darlings.
Come on, where are my little darlings?
Through the POV of binoculars, we see a young boy named Scotty Goodrich taking out a bag of trash. Good boy, Harry says.
Scotty Goodrich. Good boy, Scotty.
He pans to a window where a young girl named Susie Lovett is playing with her dolls. Good girl, Harry says.
Susie Lovett. Such a sweet baby.
In another window, a boy named Moss Garcia is cutting the centerfold out of a Penthouse magazine. Bad boy.
Moss Garcia.
Harry busts ass back down to his apartment and pulls out 2 large books, a good list and a naughty list. Moss gets put in the latter volume.
According to Jackson on the commentary for this movie, the kid who played Moss Garcia kept that penthouse, and his mother was really pissed off, I guess.
I just find it funny that Santa was so upset over a kid that age with a Penthouse magazine. I mean, obviously it's not a good thing for him to be looking at, but he's also at an age, too, where he's interested in these sorts of things and fascinated by them. So the fact that he just immediately goes to the naughty list, I thought, well, that's kind of a stretch, you know?
Yeah, but, we also have to look at the other transgressions on Moss Garcia's naughty list. Throwing rocks at dogs, you don't do that, right? No. Obviously. I mean, unless the dog's coming at you, trying to attack. Kicking over trash cans, not a great idea. I can see where you get to it.
Sure.
Picking his nose, I don't know if that's necessarily grounds for the naughty list.
No. I mean, we all have to do it once in a while, right?
Yeah. Poor physical hygiene, I think, is one of the things on there, which
is his parents' fault.
Yeah, and if that puts you on the naughty list, then, dude, you're never getting on the good boy list.
Oh, you son of a bitch. I smell like flowers all the time.
Yeah, dead flowers.
Shit.
Dead flowers. I love Moss Garcia. I love that.
That's a great name.
He has to say Moss Garcia, and to the point where I can't even call the kid Moss. I have to call him Moss Garcia.
Moss Garcia.
Every single time. The other thing I wonder when I saw this scene was who made the good book and the naughty book?
Yeah.
Good Boys and Girls 1980. Bad Boys and Girls or Naughty Boys and Girls or whatever 1980. Did he go to like his local bookbinder or Kinko's or whatever and say, hey, man, here's what I need. And they're just kind of like, blank pages, really? Okay. Yeah. And they're huge books.
They are.
They're huge. There's a vibe in this movie when it comes to him and the kids that I just don't dig at all.
Yeah.
Like, I understand it has to be there. I'm just like, it's uncomfortable, though.
Yeah.
It's really uncomfortable.
A little weird. Next, we get a good look at the Jolly Dream Toy Factory assembly line. They make cheap dollar store quality toys. Harry works at the factory and was recently promoted, though he misses working on the line. As he bullshits with his coworkers, one of the guys, Frank, played by Joe Jamrog, what a hell of a name that is, Joe Jamrog,
love it,
wants to leave early so he and his wife can go out of town. Frank's a bullying blowhard. He takes a bite of Harry's sandwich without permission and talks about how he hates Christmas because all of the money he has to spend. Harry squints like Eastwood. Back on the line, Darlene Love sings Marshmallow World as the workers build their toys. Harry gets a phone call. It's old dickhead Frank.
Hello.
Hello, Harry. This is Frank. How you doing?
Fine.
I'm not interrupting you, am I?
It's okay. What'd you want?
We're gonna do each other a favor, Harry.
What do you mean?
I couldn't get anyone else to take my shift. And I remembered how much you said you missed the line. Well, you could go back on for one night for me.
Well,
You weren't kidding before, were you?
No, I miss being close to the toys, but...
Great.
But...
I appreciate you doing me this favor, Harry.
Okay, sure. Have a nice weekend.
Thanks. You have a good time tonight.
One shift ends and another begins. Harry assumes a position on the line and puts bikers on motorcycles. At the end of his shift, Harry walks home and wanders past a bar. Through a window, he sees Frank inside bragging to his coworkers about how he suckered Harry into taking his shift. Turns out he and his wife aren't leaving until the next morning. Harry sprints home. He paces his apartment seething. His living room is lined with toys. He takes a male doll from a dollhouse and stares at it. Harry begins to aggressively hum Santa Claus is Coming to Town and snaps the doll in half.
I love that. I love the way he hums Christmas songs, especially that song. That song comes up quite a bit.
Yeah.
Well, I think, too, that the original title for this is You Better Watch Out. And I think it got changed to Christmas Evil without the director, Louis Jackson, without his knowledge. So,
really?
Yeah, it was just like the distributors changed it.
Then we see a yard sign that reads Stadling just before Harry's shadow engulfs it. Harry is standing in the front yard of his childhood home. No coat, just a cardigan. We get a brief flashback shot of the lit house as it appears at the beginning of the movie. Harry peers through a window and sees a man roughhousing with his sons on a sectional sofa before their mother enters and sends the kids off to bed. Harry watches as the woman stares at the man from the living room door for a moment. Then Harry starts getting twitchy as the woman sidles over to the man who is still lying on the couch. We see a quick flashback shot of young Harry equally agitated. Then it's back to the present as the man and woman go at it on the couch. Old Harry tries to look away, but he can't. Cut to the next morning, the Thanksgiving Day parade is on the small TV screen. Harry sits on his sofa in a robe eating a bowl of cereal as he watches. When the parade commentators say that Santa is coming up soon, Harry puts down his bowl and grabs a pillow to put behind his head as he leans back.
Little things like that, like putting the pillow behind his head and everything, it shows that he's kind of fetishizing the whole Santa deal.
Yeah.
Because when he puts the pillow behind his head and kind of leans back, he kind of looks like he's going to,
diddle his pickle?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He's going to whip the reindeer a little bit. I do like how this is edited. Like when he runs home after seeing Frank in the bar, I like how the sidewalks are all at these diagonals, like at these Dutch angles kind of, and you see his feet running along some of the sidewalks, but there's one shot of the sidewalk where you don't see his feet at all. And I like that kind of thing because, again, like that's a kind of thing that would be in a dream or something. It's just so off kilter. And I like this too, the mixture in the scene here of him looking in the window at this couple, and then they cut back and it's him as a boy, and then they go back and forth, and then he's an older man. I like that whole thing. I just think that that's really like strong editing.
And we have to talk about his run.
Yeah.
His run is hysterical.
Yeah, he's got a hysterical run. He's funny in this movie. I mean, I think at times he's over the top, but
right.
He is funny.
Yeah.
We talked about this, I thought. He's Fiona Apple's father.
Yeah.
And I guess for a long time, he was pretty ambivalent about this movie. But I think he got over that because there's a commentary track with him on the Blu-ray, apparently. So.
That's good.
Yeah.
Then we cut to the man Harry was spying on last night. He's doing push-ups in his boxers. His wife enters from another room, tying off her red robe as she walks past him and into their bedroom. He watches her go as he continues his push-ups. After a couple more, he lies down and watches her as she puts on her unmentionables under her robe. A leery smile creeps up on his face. She walks back to the door and stares him down. They still got that spark, son. Downstairs, their sons are watching the parade on TV, while upstairs, Mom and Dad are seemingly getting to work on another sibling. But then the woman brings Harry up. As they talk, we realize that the man is Harry's grown-up brother Philip, played by Darabont movie mainstay Jeffrey DeMunn, and the woman is his wife Jackie, played by Diane Hull. Jackie asks Philip to take it easy on Harry at the family dinner. She says he's too hard on him, and Philip says Harry makes too many mistakes, and he deserves it. A little later, Philip and Jackie descend the stairs, side by side and fully dressed. Jackie tells Philip about the Christmas gifts their kids want.
Mark needs a typewriter.
Ron,
It's precocious. Dennis needs a calculator.
I have to repossess a large family this week.
You're terrible.
The flippant line about, I guess I'm going to have to repossess a large family this week to pay for those Christmas gifts. Dude, it really brings up the dilemma of who we should be rooting for in this movie.
Right.
The very idea that Santa Claus is also a homicidal maniac is a rough one. Although here I think it's less cut and dry than it is in something like Silent Night, Deadly Night.
But considering Santa's capabilities of getting in and out of a house quickly, I mean, he might make a good murderer.
That's true. If Santa were, if he were real.
I'm sorry, what?
So anyway, what I was saying was that Santa here, the man playing Santa, not the real Santa, Ryan. It's okay.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. This is just...
You had me going for a minute.
Yeah,
I thought you were just going to say he wasn't real.
No, it's fine. It's fine. No, this is not real. This is the actor playing Santa. So that's not real.
What a relief.
Yeah, crisis averted, right? That fact, though, causes a dilemma for the viewer anyway. The fact that we have a Santa who becomes a killer. But, man, that line from his brother, it's like, ugh. I mean, it's weird because in a way they both kill people, right? His brother, like, kills families' lives by repossessing, I'm assuming, probably their house.
Yeah.
Because if you say you're repossessing a large family, I'm assuming you're not taking the whole family, unless you're an ICE agent. Thank you very much. I'll be here all week. But
Merry Christmas, folks.
Hey, you thought last year was bad. We're just getting into it. It's a double feature. it's really weird. As the movie goes on, I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't really give a shit if Phil knows what's up or not, because he seems like an evil person too. He's just the kind of evil that people expect. And Santa's not, this is the adult society that's not that way. Granted, Harry's relationship with the kids does creep me out.
Yeah.
Who do you love? The guy who repossesses houses or the guy who takes being Santa Claus? A bit too far.
As Philip and Jackie reach the bottom of the stairs, the phone rings and old Phil answers. It's Harry calling to say he's not coming over for dinner. As they talk, Santa's float shows up on the parade route and Harry becomes transfixed watching it. He turns the TV up louder and louder and Philip can't hear him speak. Philip shouts at the kids to turn down the TV, but they protest that it's not loud. Finally, Harry tells Philip to wish Jackie and the kids a happy Thanksgiving and hangs up.
I like how the sound of the parade works here. I mean, earlier when we went from Harry watching the parade to Philip doing push-ups, we had that little connection of the parade sound in the background. And it was a good way to subtly show that those things were going on simultaneously. And it grounded us somewhat after the peeping Tom scene that we had just witnessed.
Yeah, it's different here, though.
Well, it is. I mean, it still connects these two locations together, but I also think it represents differences in the two men's psyches when it comes to Christmas, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like for Philip, it's an annoyance. He even tells Harry that Jackie and the kids really want to see him when trying to get his brother to come over for Thanksgiving. Like, not we want to see you, they do.
Yeah, but Harry, on the other hand, is consumed by the holiday, and as he turns it up louder and louder, it overwhelms Philip to the point where he yells at the kids, even though, I mean, come on, there's pretty much no way you could confuse the TV volume on the phone line with the volume in the house.
Yeah, right.
But in a way, it shows Philip thinks the holiday and the effect it has on Harry are things he can control, but he really can't.
Right, and that's kind of how Harry will affect everybody when he goes full-on Santa bananas, They won't know how to take him, and they'll think he's either working for them or that he's a harmless crank that they can push around. But he's neither of those things. He's actually really committed and really dangerous.
Next, we see a long montage of Harry sewing together his Santa suit, intercut with shots of the city prepping for Christmas. We come to rest on a dolly shot of Harry as he paints a sleigh on the side of a white van in his garage, with heavily made-up doll heads on the shelves behind him. Nothing says, hey, kid, want a candy cane like a white panel van, am I right? He recites the names of children and what they want for Christmas in his head. How does he know this?
I don't know.
We see a quick shot of what appears to be another window display with a silver-suited Santa doll twisting back and forth. Then we're back in Harry's house looking at his decorated dollhouse. Then we pan around to see some of his other Christmas toys and tchotchkes until we see the Good Boys and Good Girls book standing up, open, with a plume of what appears to be pipe smoke coming up from behind it.
That confused me.
Yeah.
Because it seemed to be like he was supposed to be reading the book and smoking a pipe, kind of like that Santa tchotchke we just panned past.
Yeah.
But I couldn't see his hands or anything, or any other real sign of him.
Maybe the book's on fire.
Just burst into flames.
Yeah.
Because it knows that it's evil.
Right. Flashback to Harry walking home from the market. The neighborhood kids are gathered on a stoop across the street. They yell hello to him and he greets them back.
Hi, Richie. Hi, kids. Susie, you look so beautiful.
Hey, Harry, what'd you wish for today?
I wished I was super magic.
I wished I was principal so as I could throw whoever I wanted out of school. And I wish I was a firefighter, dive bomber, and think of projects. Boom!
Great!
I wish I had a lifetime subscription to Penthouse magazine.
Mars Garcia.
Damn you, Mars Garcia!
You ruin everything!
You ruin everything!
Back to the present, Harry stares bitterly at old Christmas cards of a vengeful, judgmental Santa Claus. Then he's at his desk gazing at Susie's school picture. Not right. He puts the photo face down on...
It's not right.
Not right at all. He puts the photo face down on the desk because reading from the Bad Boys and Girls book 1980 is not for her eyes. Harry opens the volume to the misdeeds page for that foul little Mars Garcia and recites his transgressions. After dark, Harry sprints wildly across the street to Mars Garcia's house. He peers in the window and sees a young lad playing with the Jolly Dream motorcycle toy while watching TV. Harry scoops up some mud from the flower bed and slathers it all over his face. Then he smashes his lip and handprints onto the side of the house. Why? Because he's doing Santa business, that's why. Then he looks back inside to see Mars Garcia's mother coming into the living room, dressed to leave. She tells the boy that they've got to go. They come outside and Harry jumps behind the bushes.
It's hysterical.
I know. That run. I can't get over that run. It's so funny.
His movements in this scene are really funny.
He runs like his ass is catching. It's just like... The mother and son argue next to the car as she opens the passenger door and then goes around to the driver's side. As he's protesting, Mas Garcia notices Harry in the bushes. The Secret Santa jerks back behind the bushes out of sight. The boy slowly walks toward the bushes as his mother calls his name. Once Mas Garcia reaches the bushes, Harry juts his hand out as if he's going to grab the kid. The boy runs back to his mother crying that there's a monster in the bushes that tried to grab him. She answers the claim by slapping the piss out of him and tossing him into the car. What's that popular phrase these days? It was a different time.
I stand with Mas Garcia here.
No kidding.
I've been there, buddy. I thought this scene was important because it showed us something that Harry misses in this single-minded quest to become this vengeful Santa, that Mas Garcia's behavior doesn't happen in a vacuum. This is obviously an abused kid.
Yeah.
You don't just haphazardly slap your kid like that unless you do something worse when you're actually trying to discipline him for real. You know what I mean?
It wasn't a slap just to get his attention. It was,
No.
it was, I cocked my arm back,
Yeah.
locked the shoulder and swing.
Yeah,
It
it was a wail.
Yeah.
I think Mas Garcia acts out the way he does because he's acting against this bad stuff that he's experienced. I mean, he does bear some responsibility for the things that he does, but kids react to their surroundings more than adults really comprehend sometimes. And I think the fact that Harry doesn't possess the compassion to recognize that here is really telling. He never really loses his hatred for this little kid.
Yeah. And I think some of that, too, is maybe related to the sexual nature of Santa Claus and his mom, too.
Right.
Maybe that's playing into why he sees that as such a dirty deed, from the kid.
Maybe so. There are a few naughty kids in the book, but this is the only one in the movie that he really focuses on. And it's the only one I think that we ever see who's in the naughty book. I think the other kids are all in the good book.
We see Harry waking up the next morning in his Santa jammies, humming the Christmas song as he rolls over and looks at his toy soldiers and other toys standing at attention. Then he is in his garage/shop pulling a bucket of liquid metal out of a kiln and pouring it into a Nutcracker soldier die. We see quick shots of some of the weird-ass toys and dolls and puppets that hang from the walls and sit on the shelves.
This dude, his Phyllis Diller doll game is on point, top notch. Oh, even the monkey that's hanging up and down looks like Phyllis Diller.
And then he pops the soldier out of the die and salutes it.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Then it's back to the Jolly Dream Toy Factory for their office Christmas party. Harry is in the locker room. He pulls his blazer out of his locker and puts it on. He combs his hair in the mirror and checks out his face in the small mirror inside the door. But then something changes. A creepy smile spreads across his face, and he raises an eyebrow and puts his finger on the side of his nose, Santa style. He's giddy, excited, but then he pulls his hand down over his face and reveals a stern, serious expression. He is a few gifts shy of a full sleigh now, kids.
This scene, actually, this little smile, reminds me of the little smile that young Harry gives right after he argues with his brother, but before he gets up and goes downstairs to see his mom and Santa Claus opening a present together. He gives this little smile, and it makes me think that the mental illness was always there.
Yeah.
And that this Santa thing is just kind of the straw that broke the camel's back.
The company break room has become party central. A tiny suitcase record player provides the music. On the wall behind it, a white sheet hangs with a crudely written holiday message complete with the company's slogan. Next to the Christmas tree, there's a makeshift bar and the booze is flowing. Harry ascends the stairs to join the party. He walks in and sees a small TV with a recorded message from Mr. Fletcher, Jolly Dream's owner, announcing that the company is donating some of their toys to a Willowy Springs Children's Hospital and urges the workers to also donate money if they desire.
I love how this message was clearly filmed on a beach somewhere.
Right.
Yeah. And Fletcher looks like a real con artist with his open shirt under the suit jacket and all the gold jewelry. And he looks like he smells like Old Spice and treachery.
Yeah.
Our
factory will donate some toys, but you should give out of your pockets too. Meanwhile, I'm going to have a Mai Tai.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'll write off your donation and my donation.
Exactly, yeah. Ben, one of Harry's co-workers, needles him about working Frank's shift. Apparently, Frank's been bragging about duping Harry into subbing in for him. Harry tells Ben that he has their number now, much to Ben's confusion. Harry says that he's been trying to find the right notes for as long as he can remember, but he can play that tune now. Then a tipsy upper manager walks in with a fresh-faced Golden Boy executive named George Gross in tow. George is getting his feet wet in the exec training program, and the tipsy boss's wife is giving George and his wife the grand tour, with midnight mass and whatnot for Christmas. After a weird exchange about Harry's tune and whether he can sing or not, Ben storms off. The drunk manager drones on as Harry sees a news report on the TV about the deplorable conditions at the Willowy Springs Children's Hospital.
That piece is based on a Geraldo Rivera documentary called Willowbrook, The Last Great Disgrace from the early 70s.
That's how he got noticed too, isn't it?
It was. It was the first time he really kind of got noticed in the region. I don't think in 1980 he was not yet a national celebrity.
Were you going to say jackass? Because I feel like that's what he is.
I was going to say jackass, yeah. The anchor character here is called Ricardo Obama. Ricardo Obama. I'm not sure if the footage in this fictional report is from that real report or not. It kind of looks like it is. I've seen that documentary, and it's rough.
It sounds like
it's really rough.
I've not seen it, but I've read about it, and it sounds terrible.
It's just awful. I thought that was kind of funny that they wanted to spoof Rivera, because I guess Rivera was kind of a regional personality in New York at that time.
Golden Boy George wants to hear more of Harry's ideas about Jolly Dream, but Harry says he's got 20 things on his mind right then. The tipsy manager pushes, though, and says the kid wants to make a big splash and that they should powwow about Harry's back-to-basics idea about running the factory. But then Harry asks about the specifics of the charity campaign and things go poorly. Turns out the toy donation was a Golden Boy executive's first big idea for the company, but he has no idea how many kids are in the hospital or if they'll all get toys. The factory is only footing the bill for part of the donations, and then encouraging the workers to contribute money for the rest of it. This puts a flame up Harry's ass because it shows how greedy the company really is. He knows that most of the workers don't have the money or the compassion to donate to such a drive. He tells young George that he's worse than the drunk manager because he, George, knows how to play the tune, but he won't play it right. It's a tortured metaphor.
Speaking of tortured, can I get all film geek here for a second?
No.
Okay, carry on.
Harry storms out of the party and downstairs. He walks purposefully down the hallway as he takes off his suit jacket and tie and rolls up his sleeves. Harry goes up to the office and grabs some linen bags to take them down to the assembly line. He loads the bags up with toy dump trucks and drags them out of the factory. Back upstairs, the Christmas party has gone into wilder gear. The TV is off now, and the pretense of being charitable in this most caring season is gone. Now even the bartenders are drinking as everybody dances and mingles to a disco version of Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Then somebody bumps the record player and the song scratches out.
I like that.
Yeah. Cut to a quick shot of a busy, decoratively lit city street. Then we're with Harry down by the river near dawn as he fills some of the linen bags with dirt, humming Santa Claus is Coming to Town as he shovels. The sun is rising as he drags the bags to a pickup truck. Back at home, Harry dabs clear glue on his face and dons a Santa beard. The glue acts fast. Harry tugs on the beard and finds it's not going anywhere. He half cries and half laughs, elated that he's becoming Santa Claus.
It's me. It's me.
It's Christmas Eve now, and Harry Claus visits the scene of the original crime, the living room of his childhood home, which is now, of course, his brother's house. He brandishes a huge butcher knife and cuts the twine binding the gifts that he's brought. He accidentally cuts into one of the gifts, and the head comes off of two of the Jolly Dream motorcyclists. Harry laughs and then leaves.
No quality control from this Santa Claus.
Right. We see his panel van, or sleigh, stopping at Moss Garcia's house, and he leaves a bag of dirt on the little pervert's doorstep.
Ah, so mean.
Poor old Moss.
Moss Garcia.
Then it's off to the children's hospital to deliver a shitload of presents. Harry backs up the van to the delivery area and rings the doorbell. A cranky guard comes out after clearly being awakened from a long winter's nap.
What do you think you're doing?
I have a delivery. I have toys for the children inside.
At this hour? What are you, wacko?
Do I look like I'm joking? Get me whoever's in charge. I don't have a lot of time.
Get out of here.
I told you I'm in a hurry. How can you be so lazy and selfish? Are you blind?
Who do you think you're talking to?
Harry begins to get angry, and the guard reaches for his gun.
I'm sorry. My approach is... it doesn't matter. Look, I'm really in a hurry, and I only have good intentions. Here.
He hands the guard a wrapped gift.
Merry Christmas. Have a good holiday.
Well, You wait here. Don't come inside, you understand?
Don't worry. I won't.
While he waits, Harry practices his Santa impression, saying, "Merry Christmas!" over and over as snow begins to fall.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Then he bellows it to the heavens.
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!
A nurse and doctor come out to meet him.
Where did you come from? I mean, who sent you?
That's a very long story. I assume all the little children have been good this year.
Of course.
Well, you'd better get some more help.
Harry opens the van door and it's full of wrapped presents for the kids.
You'd better get some of the staff. I'll wait here. Can I ask who donated all this?
Some people who didn't realize how generous they could be.
It's really a wonderful scene despite the presents being delivered by a madman.
Why do you hate generosity so much?
I don't. It's just this guy's objectively crazy.
The hospital staff is happy. They love him for being so generous, but it's impossible for you, isn't it? Is it possible for you to love anyone beside yourself?
Says the guy who spent 10 minutes trying to break down the opening scene.
What does that have to do with anything?
Oh, I love myself. Oh, you're the one that's over there, waxing philosophical about the opening scene. Who loves himself, huh?
Oh, man. No. This is getting awkward.
You poor thing.
Who's the one who texted, "We should be the two jackasses to start a podcast about drive-in movies"? I said two jackasses should start a podcast about drive-in movies, not us two jackasses. But then you texted me back and said we should do that. And now here we are, and you're getting on my case about waxing philosophical about movies? What are we talking about here, Pomeranians?
Harry drives around ecstatic at having delivered so many toys to so many children. But then he remembers George Gross, the Golden Boy executive who didn't give a damn about charity. And he goes to the church where Golden George is attending midnight mass with the tipsy manager. As the service is letting out, Harry is outside waiting. At the bottom of the church steps, a couple of dickheads begin to tease Harry about his suit and his van. He tries to move toward the tipsy manager and George, but the bullies block his way. Harry pulls a toy soldier from his bag. The soldier is holding a sword, and Harry shoves the toy sword first into the man's eye. He then produces a candy-striped hatchet and strikes the two men and a woman in the head, killing all three. He jumps back into the van and heads off into the night as the parishioners scream in shock.
I like that Jackson lingers on that shot of the church steps and shows the aftermath of what Harry has done.
Yeah, that is cool.
It feels like that shot at the end of Taxi Driver, where Scorsese trolls around the brothel and shows all the people that Bickles killed.
Yeah.
But like in Taxi Driver, it's kind of like the culmination of the madness. Here, it shows the beginning of it. It's kind of like, this is the ramifications of what ignoring this guy and pushing this guy and needling him, this is what's happening now. Like, this is the new phase.
Harry tools around in the van, frantic. He pulls over on a city street and lays his head against the door and shuts his eyes, completely spent. But before he can fall asleep, he hears a polka band playing Santa Claus is Coming to Town in a nearby building. He peers through the window, watching the partiers dance as the children sleep on couches. He's spotted by two men who pull him into the party, and Harry loudly gives a ho, 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 Merry Christmas. The children wake up and run to him as he opens his gift bag. Inspector Grella, played by Sam Gray, and Detective Gottlieb, played by Robert Lesser, climb the cathedral stairs and go inside, passing parishioners who are talking about the crime. They meet up with Detective Gleason, played by Raymond J. Barry of Justified fame, and a priest, played by that guy character actor Bill Raymond. One of the arriving detectives hazards a joking guess that all of the people saw Santa Claus commit the crime. Meanwhile, Santa is cutting a rug at the party with children and young women as the polka band plays Jingle Bells. After his vigorous dance, Harry tells him all he has to go.
I really must go now. But now, I want you to remember to stay good boys and girls. Respect your mothers and fathers and do what they tell you. Obey your teachers and learn a whole lot. Now, if you do this, I'll make sure you get good presents from me every year. But if you're bad boys and girls, your name goes in the bad boys and girls book. And I'll bring you something horrible.
As he's driving away, Harry is yelling at the reindeer and cracking the whip. But then he remembers Frank bullying him into working the night shift. Harry Claus decides to pay a visit to Frank's address. He pulls a ladder from the van and climbs up to Frank's roof. Harry tries to slide down the chimney but promptly gets stuck. He struggles for a few moments but manages to get loose, and he escapes the clutches of the chimney.
I thought he was going to die there for a second. When I first watched this movie, I thought he is going to die in that roof. That's like the ultimate indignity, to die in your bully's roof.
Dumbass got stuck in my chimney and died.
I always knew Harry was crazy.
He's so stupid. It's back down the ladder he goes. So what's a Santa to do when he can't squeeze his paunchy ass down the chimney? Breaking and entering through a basement window seems to do the trick. Harry stumbles through the house trying not to cause a racket. Harry leaves some toys under the tree for Frank's kids. It's not their fault their dad's a prick. The kids peek out of their room and see him unloading his sack, but then quickly scurry back to bed when he almost catches them.
That's such a cool shot of him lit in the foreground, and then there's that shadow in the hallway and the kids in the background.
Yeah.
That was really cool the way they set that up.
Harry walks into Frank's room and stands over him as he sleeps. He says, "You want it all, Frank, but you're no longer a child." Frank wakes up and recognizes Harry. The faux Claus tries to smother Frank with a gift bag, but no dice. Harry grabs the star from the top of a small Christmas tree in the bedroom and slashes Frank's throat. Those old school ornaments were lethal weapons, son. Frank falls on top of his wife, who oddly screams silently.
Did she have the wind knocked out of her there or something?
Could be.
Because I don't think... It didn't seem like she was so scared that she couldn't scream.
Yeah.
But it felt like maybe Frank falling on top of her maybe knocked the wind out of her?
He's a large man, so it's very possible.
I don't know.
Harry runs his hilarious run out of the house. The kids see him and he smiles at them before scurrying out of the house once their mother screams bloody murder. Harry peels off down the road. It's now Christmas Day. At Philip and Jackie's house, open presents litter the living room floor. Their sons sit and watch March of the Wooden Soldiers on TV as Phil comes downstairs worried about Harry. Jackie tries to calm him down, but then Philip sees our eyewitness reporter from the Willowy Springs piece and Geraldo Rivera stand-in, Ricardo Obama. He's on the scene at the cathedral with a news report about the Santa Claus murders. Ricardo urges everyone to stay away from people dressed as Santa until the murderer is caught. Stay away from Santa on Christmas Day, folks. Yeah. I mean, don't even get near one.
You're right.
Phil is upset that Harry isn't with them and says Harry is an emotional cripple, and Phil has to take care of him even though he doesn't want to. Harry wakes up in the back of his van. He has covered the outside of the van with a tarp. He's outside of the toy factory. Inside, he picks up a toy airplane and it breaks instantly. This infuriates him, so he breaks a few more with his hands. Then he turns on the conveyor belts and lets the toys fall to the ground and break. At the police station, several Santas are put into a lineup and made to shout, "Merry Christmas!" Detective Gottlieb briefs Detective Gleason on the Santa myth, and then they confer with Inspector Grella about finding their Santa. Harry calls Philip from his boss's office. He says everyone, including Phil, dances to the same tune, and now Harry knows how to play the tune. That whole thing there with his playing the tune thing,
I don't understand it.
It's dumb.
I don't understand what that...
I don't
understand how that fits.
I don't either. It's his version, but it works. Harry tells Phil that the difference between them is that he, Harry, always remembered everything. At first, Philip seems to have no idea what Harry is talking about, but then quickly switches and says that Harry is not going to make him feel guilty anymore. Harry then stares into a warped mirror and tells Philip about a poem he once read that said that every day that we shave, we see ourselves one day closer to dying. He says he's going to play his tune now and everybody will dance. He tells Philip that he won't have to worry anymore and drops the receiver. Philip hangs on the line, distraught.
I don't understand Philip's reaction there. When he says, at first he seems like he doesn't know what he's talking about, and then he's like, "You're not going to make me feel guilty anymore." I wonder what that meant. I wonder if it just made him feel like Harry made him feel guilty because he didn't understand Harry, or... Yeah. It seemed, though, to allude to something from their childhood, but I don't know. I can't really get my head around that.
Yeah. Harry drives off in his van. He's cracking the reins on Dasher and the gang in his mind when he hits a slick spot and gets stuck in a snowbank. He exits the van and looks down the street. It's lined with blow-mold snowmen and Santas, all lit up and haloed, with a few houses that are decorated with strings of Christmas lights. Harry wanders down the street laughing. That's a really cool look, too, what they did there.
Beautiful.
Really nice. Yeah. He stops at the end of an alley and gazes up at the huge full moon. He meanders down the alley and finds houses that are brightly decorated. Just then, a group of children run up to him excitedly. Their parents are close behind, but not excited at all. He starts handing out presents when one father pulls a switchblade. The kids surround Harry. Harry warns the man not to come any closer. He says the children need a figure to let them know when they are being good or bad, someone they can look up to. The father threatens to gut St. Nick, but his daughter runs up to him and starts hitting him, telling him to leave Santa alone. The kids form a wall in front of Harry. The girl's mother runs up and tells the father not to hurt their daughter. She shakes him and he loses the knife. He pushes his wife to the ground, but his daughter picks up the blade and gives it to Harry. He runs toward the father. They fight over the blade, and an old woman pulls off her Christmas brooch and stabs Harry in the face with the pin.
So weird.
This causes him to realize that he's outnumbered, so he flees.
There is a lot of familial abuse in this movie. Because that husband, like, he doesn't just push that wife to the ground. He throws her to the ground.
He does.
You know?
This is a town full of domestic violence.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. The neighbors light torches and begin to chase Harry. He runs around the corner and trips, falling into a pile of trash. He sits there for a moment and listens to them run around. There are quick shots of torches in the darkness. I love these town people running around chasing him with torches. It's like Shrek or something. You know?
I know. It reminded me of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the original Frankenstein Universal movie when they're chasing around with torches. And, you know, come to think of it, I think Lewis Jackson, the director, said that he saw this movie as Frankenstein.
Huh.
I don't quite see that myself, but I mean, now that you mention that, the torches do remind me of Frankenstein.
Yeah. Harry gets up and runs. He stops at the end of an alley, worn out, but then he hears them coming, so he hides at the bottom of a short stairway in the alley as they run past. He creeps out and tries to run the other way, but they see him and begin to follow him.
I didn't understand that either. That guy, he was hiding. We could still see the top of his head.
Yeah.
So this crowd's running by and they just don't see him. It was almost like a Keystone Cop sketch or something.
Right. He ducks into another alley and manages to avoid the mob for a moment, crying, but they find him and the chase is back on. Harry careens back down the street to his van. He gets in and tries to drive away, but the van skids on the snow. Finally, he peels out of the snowbank and escapes the mob again. He goes to Philip's house. Philip shakes Harry and tells him he's insane. From the time he was 6 years old, Philip didn't believe in Santa, and Harry could never get past it. Children love him, but adults never believed in him, especially Philip. Philip has had enough and chokes Harry until he's unconscious, while Jackie watches on in horror from the staircase. Philip drags Harry outside and tosses him into the driver's seat of the van as his saddened children watch from their windows. Harry wakes up from his sleep and punches Philip, knocking him to the ground. He takes off in the van and his nephews cheer him on. Harry drives erratically through the streets as Philip sprints after him. As luck would have it, he drives his van right into the path of the torch mob. Harry swerves to avoid them and crashes into the bridge railing. Philip catches up, but he falls down an embankment into a pile of boxes and rubble as Harry's van breaches the railing and continues to fly as if it were really Santa's sleigh.
Yes!
In a voiceover, Harry says,
But I heard him exclaim as he drove out of sight, "Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night."
As the movie fades to black.
I love that ending.
Yeah.
I never saw that coming when
No.
I first watched it.
No.
I thought it was great. I saw some ham-fist online talking about how Harry actually does crash because we hear the van explode. But Philip looks up and not down when all this is going on. And logistically, from where Philip has fallen, he would still have to look down to see Harry's van crash, but he keeps looking up. And that all happens after the explosion sound.
Yeah.
So I think this movie ends the way we see it ending. Although I don't know why Philip fell down a hill into some boxes. I still can't get,
Yeah.
There's a lot I don't understand about Phil. I think Phil and I need to
Phil's an odd guy.
Yeah, we need to have a powwow about the back to basics of character arcs. I love this movie. I really did. I thought the cinematography was spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
Shut your mouth. I love the surreal dream logic cutting. I loved Harry's awkwardness and how it kind of infected the rest of the film. I suppose some people would say it didn't take much to push this kid over the edge and to make him a homicidal maniac. But like I said, we've all got different thresholds, right?
Yeah.
I feel like the mental illness, or was it a calling to be the real Santa, was there. And the experience with his parents as a child just unlocked whatever his brain was keeping locked away. I want to ask what you think, but I also don't care. So...
Okay.
So
you want to move on, or
remake
you really
a
want
Rembrandt? No, I'm kidding. What? So air your grievances, young lad.
Okay. So you have said time and time again that the worst kind of movie is one that leaves you feeling nothing when it's over.
Absolutely.
That's how I felt with this one.
Okay, so remake a Rembrandt.
Well, hold on. I want to give it some praise. But
I'm just joking.
Yeah, I'll give it some praise though. The opening scene was really great. really beautifully shot. There were a lot of great scenes in the movie that were beautifully shot, by the way. I agree with you. The cinematography was really nice on this one.
Yeah.
Harry's run cracked me up every single time.
It was good.
I really enjoyed the scene of him giving presents at the hospital. That was really a nice scene.
Right.
I enjoyed the scene at the party with the polka band. That was really well done. The whole Mas Garcia bit was great. So there was a lot that I did like about this movie, but overall, when it was over, I was like, well, okay. The ending I really didn't have an opinion on one way or the other. It flew away. I was like, well, okay, why not?
Right.
I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It just was an ending. So I just ultimately I didn't have the affection for it that you did. I've seen a lot of movies like that where it's like, man, there's a lot of cool stuff in that movie, but one time was enough,
Right.
This was definitely a one-timer for me.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I can understand that if you don't respond to, if you do respond to a lot of stuff in the movie, but in the end it doesn't add up to much, then it doesn't add up to much. And that's just people. It's just different, I mean, it's just the way it goes. Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, I guess that audiences in 1980, especially like where this movie ended up playing, which was like, in exploitation houses and stuff, I guess they didn't have the time of day for that ending.
Yeah.
They hated it. So what do you do? I mean, I liked it because I didn't expect it.
Right. Coupling it with Black Christmas is not quite fair, I don't think.
Yeah.
Because Black Christmas is so great. So I went into it and, trying very desperately not to compare it to Black Christmas, and I didn't ultimately.
Right.
But it just didn't do it for me in the end. It just didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't make me want to watch it again or, at all. So.
Well, this is one of those movies too that if you don't hook into it within the first 10 minutes, then you're not going to hook into it.
Yeah.
Because there aren't any entry points beyond the first, like once you see the opening sequence when he was younger, and then you go through the credits and then you see Harry when he's older getting up. If you're not hooking into the idea of the movie and vibing with it at that point, you're just not going to.
Right.
And that's understandable. I mean, because we're two different people and we experience two different things. So it's not like we're always going to agree about movies.
Sure.
So sometimes inevitably you're going to be wrong, and I have to deal with that. No, I'm kidding. I don't think there is any right or wrong. I can see what you mean. Putting Black Christmas together with this isn't quite fair because Black Christmas is a really polished thing that sets out to do. Well, I think both movies do what they set out to do. I think what they set out to do though is two so radically different things,
right?
That sometimes comparing them feels hollow, because you can't. It's hard to compare them. But so
the times when he got to really be Santa, though, those were great scenes. Where he got to be a true blue Santa and not kill people.
Yeah,
but when he got to deliver presents and he got to make kids happy and all that, and you could see that on his face, I thought he played that really, really well.
I think he had a hard time some of the movie walking that tightrope that he was supposed to walk between being homicidal and being, generous. I do think that he kind of played the immaturity of the part really well.
Yeah.
Sometimes he indicated stuff rather than showing us stuff, but
right.
It's interesting because from what I understand of the commentary, I have not seen this movie with the commentary, but there is a commentary track with the director and John Waters. John Waters shows us at his Christmas party every year, supposedly. Mm-hmm. And apparently John Waters' take on this movie is that he looks at it kind of like almost like a metaphor for a transgender story about the idea of passing as Santa until you actually become Santa. Is the idea is passing as another gender until you actually become, you actually go through the complete, complete the process.
Right.
So I thought that was kind of an interesting take on it. And as we said, Jackson said that he thought of it as Frankenstein, which I can kind of understand, but you got to stretch a little bit.
Yeah, it's quite a stretch.
It's a little bit of a stretch, but I agree. I think part of the thing too was you mentioned the scene with the polka band as being one of your favorite scenes. And I really like that scene too. And I think ultimately the reason I like that scene and the reason I like when he drops the presents off to the children at the hospital is because those were two of the very few scenes in the movie where adults were accepting him for
exactly
who he is.
Yeah.
So in that respect, it seems like there's some good acting and good writing going on because we're rooting for this character enough that the scenes that we love in this movie are the scenes where he's accepted.
Yeah.
And
oddly enough, one scene where he's disrespected is on the steps of a church.
Yeah.
From parishioners who come out and immediately start harassing him.
Yeah.
You know, he's
out of nowhere.
Yeah. And it's not coworkers necessarily that are doing it. It's just random parishioners.
Yeah.
You know, and you would think that those would be the people that would be most accepting of him, but
I mean, it's kind of hard. You don't want to blame the victims for being killed by a candy-striped hatchet, but you know, and a toy soldier. But they did really push this guy more than you would think they would push a guy in a Santa outfit on Christmas. It's not like this guy is showing up in July to Mass and saying, "Hey ho, how's the Pope doing?" You know, it's not like he's doing that. So I don't know where that anger came from.
They can only assume that if he's wearing a Santa suit in July, he's pushing a mattress somewhere. You know.
Right. So I guess remake or Rembrandt.
Yeah.
What do you think?
You first.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Canary in the coal mine. That's great. That's great. How can we tear this guy down?
No.
Okay. No, that's cool.
I legit want to know what you think on this one.
I don't want to see it remade. What I would be open to, though, is a sequel to it with one of the kids that were in Harry's orbit growing up and seeing how that kid was affected by what Harry did. So a little bit of a Silent Night, Deadly Night thing there.
Like maybe Moss Garcia?
Absolutely Moss Garcia. Actually, yes, Moss Garcia.
Moss Garcia.
Yeah.
Maybe Moss Garcia doesn't like how he was treated by Santa as a kid, so he wants to right the wrongs and become a good Santa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Moss Garcia.
I'd be on board with that.
Yeah. I think Moss Garcia would be great.
Yeah.
I can't stop saying Moss Garcia.
Garcia.
Ooh.
I don't want it remade either. I mean, it could probably be remade and maybe improve on some of the flaws. But at this point, Killer Santa's been done a few times. So I don't think it needs to be made again. However, if it were, I was trying to think of roles we could put Kurt Russell in because he belongs in everything.
Moss Garcia.
Kurt Russell's Moss Garcia. He's already played Santa once and did it well.
Oh, it was really good.
Yeah. So I'm thinking either he could play Philip, even though he's much too old to have young kids like that.
Right.
Unless you think of the Tony Randall thing, but
I don't think of Tony Randall very often.
No, but he was like 70-some years old when he had kids again for the last time.
Right.
Maybe the bully. Maybe
Frank?
Frank, yeah. He could be Frank. He would do that pretty well, I think. He can play a good guy or a bad guy because Kurt Russell can do anything.
Okay, so now since we brought Kurt Russell up here. You brought Kurt Russell up here. So now you got the gears turning.
Sure.
Now I think I might want to see this movie remade. And I want to see Brandon Taggart's part, the main part of Harry, played by Kurt Russell.
Oh, return.
I am real. I think I do. I think I want to see the dark side of this man coming up. So we
got the good Santa in the Netflix special, and now we've got the bad Santa.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, the Netflix movie. There's a little darkness in that Santa. A little bit of foul mouth there.
Yeah, a little bit. He's a little bit of a crank.
Some of his suits are a little saucier than your normal Santa. Just like Harry's suit here has dark fur on it, or he's cutting up the. We didn't really talk about those shots in that montage, but like when he's creating this suit, it's really weird because he wraps white batting around his thigh and then puts red fabric over it and kind of punches it a couple of times. I don't know what he was. Looked like he was creating a sumo suit there or something.
Yeah.
And then he cuts up a fur coat the fur is not white at all. It's dark. It's like brown gray.
Yeah.
Which is probably closer to what the real, mythological Santa was supposedly like. But yeah, there's a little bit of something. Oh, I don't know, man. I really think. I don't have a whole cast list here that I can think of, but.
Right.
Oh, man. Kurt Russell as Harry Stadling? I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
And he's a good-looking Santa Claus, too, isn't he?
Come on, man. He's dreamy.
Whew.
He's dreamy.
And that was his real beard.
Oh, that's right. That's true. Oh,
well, they said that he said that most of it was his real beard, and they put extensions on it. But the bulk of it was his real beard.
Wow.
Yeah.
Impressive.
It is.
He's great.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I was telling my wife the other day that if I came down when I was a kid, because we lived in a tri-level, and you go down to the family room, and that's where the Christmas tree was, all the gifts were.
Right.
If I had come down there one Christmas Eve night and saw Santa Claus by the tree, I probably would have picked something up and tried to beat him up. So I was always scared of intruders, right?
Right.
If he was Kurt Russell, I would have to
hump his leg.
Well, I wouldn't do that. I'm not a feral animal.
Oh, the thought would cross your mind, though.
But no. I was an 8-year-old child. Nasty.
You never know what animal instincts will take over on you.
No, I actually wouldn't beat him up. I might actually share my cookies with him. I would never leave cookies for Santa. So I was like, that dude can get his own cookies. He's like flying down chimneys and dropping off gifts. Dude can get his own cookies. If he doesn't pack a good lunch, that's not my fault.
No.
You know?
No.
So, oh man. Kurt Russell is Santa Claus again. I like it.
Yeah.
Ooh, watch the Santa origin story. Oh man, now you got me going. Now I got to cast this whole damn movie. Oh.
Who would play Moss Garcia?
Oh, man, I don't know. That's the thing. I have no idea. Next week on the short reel. No, I'm just kidding.
Just one to end on. I think as far as Moss Garcia is concerned, I've got an idea for who can play him.
Okay.
Jason Mantzoukas.
Oh, we're talking a grown-up Moss Garcia.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a horse of a different color. Oh, yes.
Maybe Santa Kurt Russell can remember Moss Garcia, and at some point maybe go visit Moss Garcia's family.
That's it right there. That's the movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's Santa, it's like Harry Santa comes back, and he remembers Moss Garcia, and the whole movie is them warring all over the city.
Maybe Mantzoukas can bring back Rafi for that role and just be completely just a total degenerate pervert.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. Oof. Wow. I mean...
Start writing that script, will you?
Now we're talking. Yeah, let me get my typewriter out.
I'll look into the rights.
I'll get my typewriter and my team of chimpanzees. And in about 5,000 years, we will have a script.
Thank you for joining us at the All Night Drive-In Picture Show. We hope you enjoyed our double feature this evening. You can follow us on social media at the All Night Drive-In Picture Show page on Facebook or at All Night Drive-In on Twitter and Instagram. If you have questions, comments, or movie requests, you can send them to our email address at allnightdriveinpictureshow@gmail.com. Join us next week for another fantastic double feature, and until then, we appreciate your patronage. Don't forget to hang up your speaker, and please drive carefully on your way out.
The All Night Drive-In Picture Show is edited and produced by Markham Harvey. Our theme song is composed and performed by Lee Rosevere and edited by The Night Watch. Our head ticket taker is Stubbs Jorgensen. Our snack bar manager is Lucy Slewfoot. Our sign master is Jason Baldwin. Our drive-in manager is the one and only George Jaike. I'm your announcer, Lane Hewitt. This has been a Clown Business Coalition production. Good night, everyone.